Bum, ba, 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 bum, ba, ba, ba. I have returned. It's another Saturday night. Therefore, another Saturday night shoot the breeze. I want to thank everyone who is already here. I see Daily Affirmations by Pauline is out there saying good evening. I see Kofi the Black Critic is out there saying I can't wait. I appreciate you guys for being here already. And I want to thank everyone who will be in attendance tonight, either in the chat or on the panel. And especially want to thank you guys who take your time to come and listen to the playback, even though you missed the live itself. We were not here last week. Missed you guys. Hope you guys felt the same way about the show not being on. Drop a 1 if you missed the show last week. Drop a 2 if you can hear my voice. Drop a 1 if you missed the show last week. Drop a 2 if you can hear my voice. Maybe like Umar Johnson. Drop a 1 if you missed the show last week, and drop a 2 if you can hear my voice. Would appreciate that. Or you could drop a 3 to express both things. With that said, you know the deal. I like to come online before we start the show officially, to give you guys a heads up on what we're discussing tonight. We're going to try to answer, we're going to look at an example of something and try to answer, is this what is meant by the healing power of music? We're going to look at the new president of Senegal being a polygamist. Does he have it right, or is it a disaster in waiting? We're going to bring back the keto diet topic. Remember we had that, I think that was last year, or maybe 2 years ago. We're going to bring that back, talking about cutting out sugar and carbs. There's a doctor that makes a better case that carbs are not bad, but the kind of carbs you eat is the issue. We'll discuss that tonight. We're going to try to answer the question, how can we wrestle the control of our economic markets back? And finally, we're going to try to answer the question, what's wrong with marrying a pole dancer? Before we get the show rolling, no one responded if they could hear me, so I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. Before we get to it, and I guess no one missed the show last week either. All right, duly noted. Before we get to it, shout out to an RIP to O.J. Simpson. Now, I know O.J. is controversial because he said, I'm not black, I'm O.J. But the fact that, how do I want to put this? The fact that he did his thing in life, in some cases more than what we did when it comes to these other folks, shout out to him and RIP. We're going to start the show officially now. On the other side, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as welcome any and all of the panelists tonight. So until then, you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. We're back. Another week of the Shoot the Breeze segment of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Been busy. Had to get out of town for a minute. I'm back. And I'm eager to, sit and chat with you guys about different topics that you're interested in. Shout out to Anthony McPhail, who's out there. He said, rest in peace, OJ. Brothers, leave them snow bunnies alone. I agree. Trigger Happy 262 Plus is also out there. And like I shouted out, Kofi the Critic, the Black Critic, and Daily Affirmation by Paulie, and they're all out there as well. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my one panelist who's with me tonight. If anyone wants to join, just click the link pinned to the top of the chat, and you can join the conversation as well. I'm trying to figure out something too. Trying to figure out if when I do a live stream that I connect to Twitter, does that create a space on Twitter? Because I'm seeing a notification on Twitter. It looks like I'm hosting a space. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that would be dope if you guys are on Twitter. If it in fact is a space, hop in there in that space and join the conversation. I'll have to investigate that a little bit further in the future. Without further ado, now let me introduce the panelists that I have with me, only from the pro-black perspective. How are you this week?
Peace. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
all right.
Sir.
All right. Yeah. What's up? What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. Shout out to OJ, I guess, right?
Yeah. Shout out to
alone. That's what it was. Leave them snow bunnies alone. That's it.
Yeah. Shout out to the juice, man. With that said, let's welcome our boy Buana this week. Buana, how are you?
I'm good, bro. Shout out to OJ as well. Rest in peace. Oni, you sound like you're in a bathroom closet. And Koku, I'm glad to have you back, brother.
To be back. Thanks for being here as well. Yeah, Trigger says he sees it on Twitter as well. So if you guys are listening, hop on in the spaces. I think it's a spaces thing. It would be cool if that's what it is. Hop in the space, join the conversation. Without further ado, let me drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, is this what is meant by the healing power of music? Of course, this comes with a link that's going to take us to X, or formerly known as Twitter. So there's a post from Net. Let me make sure you guys can see it. Yes, you can. There's a post from Jet that says, music, the harmony of chords and melodies being played, the frequencies more powerful than you think. This comes with a 1.5-minute video. It's not a thread. So we'll play it. I'll play it probably twice so that we get a good understanding of what's being discussed.
We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. 2 input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower, what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. When we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. They begin to slow down, then they stop, and then they begin to disintegrate within about 3 minutes. You'll see a large organism in the center, a paramecium, undergoing disintegration, and swimming all around it, a tiny different organism, which is unharmed. We film the destruction of hundreds of microorganisms. We attack pancreatic cancer. They change their shape and size. This is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. So now we attack leukemia cells, shattered into dozens of fragments. You can see by the end of the video, the great many ovarian cancer cells were destroyed. Now we attack pancreatic cancer once more. The tumor shrinks and is broken up in repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the two top experts. We killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect. Cancer treatment rooms for children will be a very different place. They'll draw pictures, color in their books, play with their toys, all the while unaware that above them are beautiful blue pinkish plasma lights emanating healing, pulsing electric fields, shattering their cancer painlessly and non-toxically, one cell at a time. Thank you. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. Two input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower, what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. When we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. They begin to slow down, then they stop, and then they begin to disintegrate within about 3 minutes. You'll see a large organism in the center, a paramecium, undergoing disintegration, and swimming all around it, a tiny different organism, which is unharmed. We film the destruction of hundreds of microorganisms. We attack pancreatic cancer. They change their shape and size. This is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. So now we attack leukemia cells, shattered into dozens of fragments. You can see by the end of the video, the great many ovarian cancer cells were destroyed. Now we attack pancreatic cancer once more. The tumor shrinks and is broken up in repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the two top experts. We killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect. Cancer treatment rooms for children will be a very different place. They'll draw pictures, color in their books, play with their toys, all the while unaware that above them are beautiful blue pinkish plasma lights emanating healing, pulsing electric fields, shattering their cancer painlessly and non-toxically, one cell at a time. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never really looked into this too deep. Funny enough, I work with bacteria all day, every day. So it's something I'm gonna start to look into personally. I know that I know that frequencies affect the brain. So when people talk about music as a healing, I do believe there's something to that because the brain does respond to certain frequencies. So, but the idea of cancer and bacteria and stuff being destroyed by frequencies and that 11th harmonic, I'm not certain about. I'll begin to look into it. So I appreciate this prompt being brought here today. Buana, what are your thoughts on it?
Koku, the science is a little bit above my pay grade, but it's an interesting discussion. You know, I don't, you know, the Rastafarians used to say words, sound, and power. You know, but I am curious about it. You know, I am curious about whether sound has a healing effect on the human body. It's a very interesting assumption. You know, I don't know how far this gentleman would have gotten his research, you know, in terms of frequency and actually healing cancer itself. But I don't know. I don't know what the scientists are actually saying about these kinds of things yet. I think it would probably be a new kind of medicine. You know, I've never heard the medical community investigate the healing effects of sound. So it's a very interesting assumption. But I really don't. I'm curious to know where it'll go in the future. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm curious to know what'll go in the future. But again, I guess you can speak to this though, Buana. You know, we know that music can set a mood. You know, I think it was Anthony McPhail who said it on here a couple months back. How you listen to certain music before you go out there to do certain destructive things, or you listen to music before you romance your lady or what have you. You know, so I think there's something, but that has more to do with the brain. What this guy is talking about is about cells and whatnot. I'm not too sure about that part, but what say you? Like when you listen to Bob Marley or Sizzler or
no, definitely. Music they are mood alterers. They are definite mood alterers, and it does, to me, I feel like it does affect the brain. Coco, you probably have the science behind that, but it does affect the mind and the way people actually feel and to some degree think, because there are words in music too. So sometimes when you listen to music, even on the subconscious level, you might not be listening to something, just hearing the music, and and throughout the day, certain ideas will be playing in your head. You'll be like regurgitating, repeating some of the things you would have heard like hours and sometimes even days ago. And it does affect the mood. That's why me personally, I try to regulate some of the things that I listen to, because I know that it does have an impact on not only the mood, but really the human mind, really the human mind. And I think that many people in Zimbabwe and South Africa would tell you they used to listen before they actually went out to go fight the Boers. They used to listen to the Bob Marley rebel music, a lot of his music, before they actually went out to commit the act itself. So I think that there is something in terms of saying that music is a mood alterer, and it does kind of impact the mind and what it does in terms of you going out there and doing the things you need to do. So that's why I feel within our community we really need to be discriminatory in terms of what we allow into our mind and our mental headspace. Because people are the next battle, to me, the next war front is the battle of the mind. And he who has the sharpest, more versatile, strongest mind, I feel will win at the end of the day. If you are able to conquer the mind, the body will follow. That's what I think. But I'll leave it.
Well said. Well said. I think Trigger Happy 262 Plus makes a point that I think I came across before too. He says, if I can find it, Obadale Campbell was talking about that a bit, about music and the healing of the body. Afro's out there, I know he would appreciate it. He said music is the most powerful magic. Trigger Happy says in the chat, Kamal Rashid has a presentation on Shakara's channel about martial arts. He mentions that when he does why am I stuttering now? When he does capoeira with the music, it has a different effect on his performance without the music. Yeah, absolutely. You know what's so crazy? But I want to touch on something for a second or two. A lot of low vibrational music is so catchy that you'll catch yourself singing along to a little part of the beat. Whenever you catch it, like a car drive-by blasting some low vibration, and you're able to kind of go along with it, and it does something. It does something to your mind, I find. And I think it's something that we need to safeguard our youth from a little bit better, as Buana put it. With that said, let's hear from Oni on this one. Oni, what say you?
Well, I can't tell. Does my mic still sound like I'm in the bathroom, I guess? It might be this. I don't know if y'all saw my house. My house is huge, so it might be the echo. I don't know. But it could be the mic. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's echo from your house, but it's cool. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mansion life, man. No, I'm joking. Anyway, what I was going to say was the shattering. Yeah, so he's saying cancer can shatter from sound waves, and I think that's an interesting concept. From a physics perspective, right? The idea that something can vibrate so much that it would tear apart, like kind of like if you I don't know, shake somebody, I was gonna say shake a baby, but let's not do that. But if you were to shake somebody to the point where it would rattle them, but for cancer on a molecular level, that is I think that's a fascinating concept. Now the trouble with that is how, what if that frequency is well, I mean, all right, so there's two things to it. One is that I can't remember the term for it, but everything kind of has a frequency in which it would amplify itself, kind of like when you're on a swing, if you kick forward when, at the right moment, you'll go faster and faster and farther and farther. So everything has a particular frequency that it will vibrate to. Now, that makes sense that, a cancer can have a particular frequency. The issue or the trouble is, what if something else has that particular frequency too, right? Because if something else has that particular frequency, that too can be destroyed and shattered. And whereas you might get rid of cancer, you might, I don't know what it is. Let's say your blood cells or something. You might get rid of your blood cells in your body. You know what I mean? And that's where this kind of borders on dangerous. Now, obviously, if you can target the cancer with the sound waves, that then you can mitigate the damage to other parts of your body. But I mean, that's definitely like, this is one of the things to explore. And the reason why I think it's one of the things to explore is because when I was studying Kemet, they had what they call the seven liberal arts. And for a long time, I kind of like always included that inside of my, like if I had a discussion about curricula, I would say, look at what's his name, the Stolen Legacy. Look at Stolen Legacy. I think it's George James, maybe. But look at Stolen Legacy and how he describes what the ancient, Kemet too had in terms of the seven liberal arts. And of course, they're reading, writing, geometry, but one of them is music. One of them is astronomy. One of them is music. And his description was that music could be, a healing type ordeal. And so, people in ancient Egypt seem to have understood that you could use music to heal people, right? And so it is kind of it is kind of amazing that like science is kind of catching up. And of course, back then you could have done like hymns and songs, or made chants, like because I know some people do chants, like the people in the East now, they kind of do chants like om om om, and they do that to evoke some sort of spiritual harmony or something, right? That kind of stuff can like it might be possible that these frequencies that we are that can heal you, that you could actually emulate it, or you could imitate it with your mouth or something like that, and that, or even like with a drum or with a djembe or with an instrument. And I think the last thing I could say is that one time I was sitting down in a park somewhere, and then I think either some brother or some sister engaged me, talking blah blah, and they said one time they heard somebody with a music performance doing a music performance, and I guess they had like some sort of string instrument, and they were able to play some chord that made the person just cry uncontrollably. Like they had no reason to cry, nothing, so on and so forth, but just that musical chord or what have you could just make a human's, like make liquids just come out of the human's eyes. That is, that again, I think there's a bigger dimension to music that we don't usually explore. And I do agree that when it comes to us as a people, like we do have a lot of negative or low vibration music that can influence us to be a little bit more violent toward one another, And I say that because there's that, I think it's like hot boy N-word or something like that. I don't know. But there's this song that this guy, I can't remember his name, but I tell you, when you play that song, you feel like being violent with somebody, like you just feel like being violent with that person. And it's weird, because if this is a real science for us as human beings, or a real ability for us to heal, and this is something that we tend to really or something that it's proven that we have known at one point, it really should be one of our things to look back into it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, let me also say thank you for this post, because it's really making me think. Like I said, I work with bacteria and stuff all day, and music is a passion of mine. So I should probably look into melding these two things, based on what this guy was talking about. As far as the frequency stuff go, yeah, it's absolutely true that different materials house different frequencies, and as only would know as a physicist, there's something called thermodynamics where you could speed up the rate that molecules move and bounce off each other and stuff like that, usually with heat or some type of energy. So I imagine that you could probably load up a cancer, because all cancers attach to some type of blood vessel. You could load up a cancer with a material, some liquid material that vibrates at a frequency different from anything in the body, and apply that frequency and just disrupt these cells. Now, the issue might be, what's that word that they use? Metastasis, where you might not get all the cells destroyed and it travels, within the body, blah, 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 and causes a problem somewhere else. But it's a very interesting thing, and I'm glad that you brought this topic. Also, I'd like to say, I forgot about that stolen legacy thing, and we should look into those seven studies, those 7 areas of studies more often too. Thank you for that. So in the chat, got the forecast saying what's up. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, I would argue Europeans are catching up. It just tells you that our advancements in particular things is a reflection on how old African culture is when it came to these inferences. He says, if you notice with older African music, Caribbean music, or African music in America, it's very colorful. Dorico Kubu Photography, haven't seen you in a while, brother. Got your emails. I'm going to read through them tomorrow, so I appreciate seeing you here on a live show. He said model oscillatory frequency can quote-unquote shatter disease, so that's something else to look into as well. Our boy Real Black Gentleman is out there in the chat saying greetings and graces, fam, so I appreciate you coming through. Only says I'm trying to cure cancer. No, it's just an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. And that's the thing, like how we do Shoot the Breeze and we talk about these different topics. I think black scientists and academics should be sitting down doing similar as well, taking these little pieces of information and allowing their creativity, as well as the science that they're rooted in, but allow your creativity, you know what I mean, to kind of move the needle, I think. And we have so much instances of cancer and stuff taking us out. We really should be looking into that stuff for ourselves, Is there any last thoughts on this prompt?
Yes, if you find a sound that is killing cancer cells that you find personally, I want you to patent that sound and let before you sell it to the marketplace, let your friends them invest in that sound, please, so we can get a piece of that sound, whatever you find that cure cancer cells.
Absolutely, yeah. That's how we're supposed to do that too. You know what I mean? Before we go and give this research to these other folks, and as a matter of fact, these white folks nowadays are pushing that too. Where if you're a researcher now, they're pushing these incubator type deals where you can patent your work and this, that, and the other. Universities and research centers will get a piece of it. But like you are saying, and I think it's true, before you go and just patent it and be grabalicious and take it for yourself, people, let people around you benefit as well. In the chat, Trigger Hobby 262 says, also the cancer topic has a lot to do with the European diet people eat. That's why the carb topic is important. That carb topic will be discussed tonight as well. So y'all stay tuned for that. Since there's no other last thoughts, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 tonight. Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 says, the new president of Senegal is a polygamist. Does he have it right, or is it a disaster in waiting? This came with a link that's taking us to YouTube. I should have queued this up already. Sorry. What we'll do is we'll watch the video and then we'll comment on it. Take that off. Okay, so you guys should be able to see this now. We'll watch it and then we'll discuss it.
We have the newest president in Africa, Mr. Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal, the young 44-year-old man that just got elected president. We spoke about this. Has stirred controversy because the man is polygamous. Okay, he's polygamous. For those who don't know, polygamous means when a man has many partners, many wives, official wives. We're not talking about a woman around the corner. We're talking about a wife. These are official procedures that are done in many African countries up until today. So Senegal's incoming president to take office with 2 first ladies. That's a first, fellas. 2 first ladies, official. This is not when some of these presidents in Africa do. There's a president in Central Africa has many wives, but came forward with only one, giving her the honor, while the other one looks like a thief. Same for Zuma, South African president. Okay, the South African president has multiple wives. Not one, not 2, more than that. And I believe in the Zulu culture, you can have many wives, provided you have the means to take care of the wives. Senegalese President-elect Bassirou Diomaye Faye is due to be sworn as the country's newest leader on Tuesday. He stepped on stage holding the hand of both his wife, Mary and Absa. How interesting is that? He didn't go forward with one of them. He took both of them, holding both their hands. That's very precious. It was an unprecedented sight in the national politics of the West African country, and the clear choice for the first round winner who promises radical change. Is this his way of showing radical change from the get-go? Very interesting. Polygamy is a traditional and religious practice firmly anchored in the culture of Senegal, where the overwhelming majority is Muslim. In fact, according to some statistics, by 2013, 32% of Senegalese marriages were actually polygamous marriages. That's 1/3, fellas. That's a lot of people being married. And if you translate that to millions of people that live in Senegal, those are millions of marriages that are polygamous. Mary Kone, who until now had never been seen in the spotlight, comes from the same village as the 44-year-old Faye. They married 15 years ago and have 4 children. He then married his second wife, Absa, just a year ago. So his first wife has been with him for 15 years. They have 4 children, and his second wife, we've been together for 1 year. So this is very interesting. While as a brand new president who promised change, comes forward with both his wife, holding them hands, that's a very strong message to the world. I am not like my predecessors. Our traditions are going to be respected. There will be no shame around people who are respecting tradition. Polygamy has long stirred controversy in the public appearance by Faye, and he is known with his 2 wives by his side. He was cheered by thousands of people, thousands of supporters, and people being happy, polygamous people being happy. So basically what they're saying here is Mr. Faye is showing the lead, he's showing the way to Senegalese people, as well as many African people. We are going to respect our tradition. Fellas, I know you're probably from the United States of America, or from the Caribbean. You certainly don't necessarily understand the idea around polygamy, okay? It's not sexual. No, it's not. People do that by choice. But before I get to that, let me first try and explain to you this. The reason why you believe and you're happy with being with one man, one woman, the reason why you believe you should have breakfast in the morning is because you were born in a setup where you need to have breakfast in the morning. There are many people out there in the world who have no breakfast. They only eat once a day, and they found no issues with that at all. And scientifically, biologically, there's no issue not eating breakfast. So a lot of it's belief. It comes from where you come from. It comes from your upbringing. And I can understand you finding it absolutely different, talking about a president with 2 wives. Well, in many African customs, polygamy is okay. It's never been an issue. I mean, I grew up with some people, we were, faraway cousins, whatever you want to call it. You know, Africans call each other cousins. When you like each other, say, that's my cousin. Anyway, they had 2 moms. Mom number 1, mom number 2. There were about 14 children in the house. Mom number 1, mom number 2. And guess who the best friends in the whole world were? Mom number 1, mom number 2. Wherever you found mom number 1, you will see mom number 2. They were the best friend in the whole world. Why? Because when they got married, they were both young. Okay. And whenever mom number 2's child was doing wrong in front of mom number 1, she would punish him. You know, in Africa, you slap some of your kid when they do wrong. I know in America, you can't do that. They're going to call the police on you and you're going to go to jail, or they're going to take the child away from you. In Africa, if a child calls the police comes and slaps the child or asks the father to slap him even more. Anyway, in South Africa, it's a bit dodgy. Yeah, there's a lot of influence of Western nations. Anyway, what I'm saying to you is whenever a child from mom number 2 did something wrong, mom number 1 could punish that child without resentment. And everybody will go, yeah. And when mom number 2 comes and sees that, she will also punish the child. The same for mom number one's child. Whenever any of the first wife children did something wrong, mom number two could punish that child with no issue. And they called each other mom. Okay. The kids of the first wife will call the second mother mama. The kids of the second mother will call the first wife mama. They lived in harmony. And I remember they went to a Christian church where they told the man he had to choose one of the wives or else he's not going to go to heaven. yeah. So the man says, well, I've been married to them for like 25 years, 30 years. And now you want me to I cannot. Who am I going to ask to leave? It's not possible. They say if you want to see the kingdom of God, you have to release one of them. He says, well, I'm not going to chase anybody. Wherever want to go, then they can go. None of them left. And I remember clearly I went to the same church and people looked at them funny, like they are funny human beings. Okay, up until now, these people are still together, the three of them. And most of the people that were preaching that you will not go to the kingdom of heaven, many of them have divorced and some of them have died. You know what I'm saying? So it's very easy to judge something you don't understand. And again, let me put it this way for you. I know many people believe polygamous marriages are necessarily wrong, not necessarily sad. No, they're not. Just like every monogamous marriage is not happy, polygamous marriage is not all sad. Not all monogamous marriages are good, right? That's why you see the divorce rate. Have you seen it? Do you know the divorce rate among polygamous people? Oh, very low, very, very low. Compared to monogamous people, I only want one man. Now, bottom line is you don't have one man. You have probably 17 or 27 men. You get married to the 27th one. Most of you are serial monogamists. You're not monogamous because monogamy means you're only going to know one man your whole life. That's pure monogamy. You're only going to know one man and that's the man that's married you. You don't want to wait for that. You want to be active, sexually active. So it's serial monogamy. You've had 37 different men, then one at a time. And these people probably never known anybody else beside the three of them. How about that? They've never been sexually with nobody else beside the three of them. You know what I'm saying? So the bottom line is, who are we to judge? And Western nations are sort of, looking at the situation with so much disdain. What are they trying to do? What is this primitive idea of having a president with many wives? Oh, we could say the same about, Western nations come to Africa and say, well, men should be with other, you know what I mean? Women with other. That's not necessarily African, okay? You got your own stuff. You got our own stuff. Who's right? So you're okay with that, but you're not okay with Africans being polygamous. In fact, the United Nations says polygamy is discriminating against women. Many of these women are happy, trust me, okay? You can say whatever you like, saying they were forced, they never forced. These are something you learn when you're very young, okay? Just like you learn how to respect elders in African communities, you don't insult them. When they want to sit, you stand up, give them space. Same for polygamy. These girls have seen their mom being polygamous, so it's family to them. And to them, there's no such thing as that's my half brother, that's my half sister. That's my brother, that's my sister. In fact, these half brothers and stuff that was brought to you by Europeans when they came to Africa. When they came to Africa, they made you believe that being polygamous is a sin. It's not written in the Bible or in the Quran. Nowhere. You will not find that. Who was monogamous in the Bible? Not many, if there is any. You know what I'm saying? Abraham, Isaac, all of them. Isaac actually took 2 sisters. That dude was crazy. Anyway, so again, President Faye, very young man, 44 years old, newest president of Senegal, is clearly sending a message. We're here for Africans. We're here for Africa. We're here for tradition. You're either going to respect us or we're not going to have business. I also think by doing things this way, it's being open. I think this is still better than hiding things. You'd rather have somebody that comes forward and transparent, that expresses himself about his feelings and how he sees things, than have somebody that's going behind the curtains and doing negative things. That's when you expose yourself to things that are not good for you. I believe when you are transparent, you can all do things appropriately and protect each other instead of going beyond those. Thank you very much, fellas. It was a great pleasure. How do you feel about this? I want to know how you feel about polygamy. What is your experience? What is your feel about this? How do you feel about this? Do you understand that there are people that are happy to be that way? And here we talk.
All right, so we're back to the polygamy discussion, but in relation to the new president of Senegal. Does he have a right? Does he have it right, or is it a disaster in waiting? In the chat, real quick, Trigabi262 Plus says polygamy, monogamy, or even polyandry is just a matter of sexual imbalances. If sexual imbalances are removed, monogamy is more reliable for the general population. The elite typically do polygamy. He says also polygamy existed in traditional Africa It isn't just an Islamic thing, from my understanding, all because of sexual imbalances, which makes sense. Athrazer says, good for him. Wish I could find two women who could get along with me and with each other. I hear you on that, brother. Dorico Cooper says, the immediate family is the first economic unit. The immediate family is the first economic unit. A quote from Dr. Amos Wilson. I appreciate all those comments. Y'all keep them coming. Let me start with Oni this time. Oni, what say you to this?
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, I kind of like what the Archer says, which is good for this dude. I mean, it's easier said than done, obviously, and it also becomes what do you want as an individual? Some guys don't want like me personally. I'm happy with one. I did try. I tried to entertain two, and one of them was batshit crazy. You know what I mean? And you remember that there are some people out there who are crazy. So it's just if you can find two good ones that will agree with it, and so on and so forth. The reality is, when you say, does he have it right or does it disaster? If you come from a culture where it's a norm, there are institutions, there are ways to get it right. What we are doing in the West is, kind of like what the brother was saying, serial monogamy, which is just kind of like embarrassing, kind of stupid. What we have in terms of relationships, if we're being honest, are like we have no reason to marry. Not that we have no reason to marry, but you really got to convince somebody to marry because I'll put it this way. In traditional Africa, if we're talking about traditions, right? In traditional Africa, like kind of what the brother was saying, actually, he hinted at it. You don't have sex outside of marriage. So if you don't have sex outside of marriage, that means that marriage was for sex. Okay? If you don't have sex outside of marriage, that means marriage is for sex. Marriage is not for sex in the Western world, right? Marriage is not for sex. And so when you have a culture that says have sex outside of marriage, right? And it's with abortions and with condoms and with all so on and so forth, it's reasonably safe to do so, right? You basically destroyed one of the main premises for keeping a marriage or for having a marriage, and not just that, it's long been observed, even without condoms and all that kind of stuff. It's long been observed in the Western world how really like women are sharing men and men are sharing women. One of the things that I noticed when I was researching for my second book, the Book of Power. When I was researching for that book, I noticed that, matter of fact, third book, sorry. But I noticed that Maurice Bishop had a mistress who was killed with him. So Maurice Bishop had a wife, and come time that they were going to kill him, assassinate, whatever, he was gunned down with his pregnant mistress. Okay, so why does this man, right, with a wife, why does he also have a mistress everybody knows about? So I would say if a man really can't handle having sex with one woman, like if he can't handle it, then obviously he should do polygamy. Now some people will say no, polygamy could it's better because you can produce more children. Yeah, if that's another thing too. If you want to produce more children with your bloodline, obviously more women the better. But outside of that, like if we're being realistic, unless you again, if you have the means, which is if you can provide for two households, then and you want to have a lot of children, or if you want to have sex with more than one woman, then go forth and divide your time between women. Personally, I don't like, based off of the arrangement I have now, it's like I don't really need to divide my time. Like I don't see it would be a benefit to my life to divide my time, you know. But if somebody's out there feels like they would rather divide their time between 2 women or 3 women or 4 women, and they have the means, you know, that's their choice. And I think it's more dignified than, you know, having a mistress or entertaining prostitutes, which is another thing people do, or what's it called, cheating on your wife and, you know, having affairs and all that kind of stuff. That's the and the thing is that the affairs and all that kind of stuff, that's the norm in the Western world, you know. So the most so in so far as, you know, there are a lot of men, particularly in the West, who are very sexually undisciplined, right? Insofar as that's the case, that's the reality. And I'm saying it's a reality because I'm saying Engels wrote about it in his book on his book about the family and so on and so forth. He writes in length about monogamy, and he's talking about how, yeah, you know, a lot of times a man is going to have multiple sexual partners despite being married, right? And he's pretty much prohibiting his wife from having multiple sexual partners, right? But and Engels is writing this in like 1850, you know. The fact is that that trend continues to this day, and it's just a well-researched trend inside of the Western world. And again, he's talking about Europe. He's not even talking about, you know, Black Americans or some shit. He's talking about Europe, and he's like, this is the way that it is. So insofar as, you know, lack of sexual discipline is a norm in the Western world, you know, it is more dignified if you have a lack of sexual discipline to marry the other woman, you know, as opposed to just giving her, you know, pocket change, you know, or or, you know, sneaking around with this lady, because sneaking around can get you killed. But that's pretty much all. I mean, I again, I don't think it's a disaster. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a disaster to have, like, if you're in a society where polygamy is accepted or polygamy is regular, and they said like a third of the people are in polygamous marriages. If you're in that kind of society, it's very unlikely it's going to be disastrous. And as far as I can tell, I read parts of Jomo Kenyatta's book on the Kikuyu, and their system was pretty, like pretty well established, to the point where, you know, after a man marries a woman, the woman starts asking him, when are you going to get another wife? You know, I need some help around the house. You know what I mean? I need help around, you know, the facility, the compound. So it's like, yeah, I don't see it as a disaster. I think it's something that, you know, if you are so inclined, if you lack the sexual discipline, or no disrespect, or even if you just feel like you want to have 10 kids, and it's just unrealistic to have 10 kids with one woman, then go for it, you know. But otherwise, like me personally, I'm pretty happy with what I have.
I appreciate that response, Oni. And I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't know that Bishop's sweetheart, that's what we call that back home. I didn't know Bishop's sweetheart was pregnant when they were executed. That was a revelation for me. So I appreciate that. In the chat, Arthur says, be a polygamist, don't be a polygamist. Treat your partners well and stay out of other people's business. That other people's business thing, we'll table that for another time. I think, I'm not saying Arthur is doing it, but I think people tend to use that other people's business thing a little too much to get away with some nonsense. Too. Trigger Harvey 262 Plus says, my position is this. You have to think the bigger position as opposed for yourself. The general populace can't all be polygamous. Polygamy should be an option when we have more women than men. I agree with that. He goes on to say, I also have a paper too about the Akan and Igbo, that because of the lack of men due to the transatlantic slave trade, there were few sex workers to push away bachelors from married people. Interesting. Forward that to me on the Discord if you don't mind. Trigger Happy. And if you guys don't know, I have a Discord. Only has a Discord as well. You guys check out the description of this video. Find the link. Join. Do the same thing on Oni's videos. Find the link and join. Join both Discords. Oni has real good conversations continuously going. Me, not so much. But make sure you join and help help the conversations to go further along. Let's welcome in our boy, Real Black Gentleman, RBG. How are you this week?
I'm straight.
Good. What are your thoughts on this? New president of Senegal is a polygamist. Does he have it right, or is it a disaster in waiting?
I mean, how do I say it? You got to look at it from the male and female's perspective, right? Now, as a man, I'm going to speak primarily from the male perspective right now. You got men of all ages, right? You got young men. You got your middle-aged men. You have your old men. Now, a young man, much more than likely, isn't going to have multiple wives, right? Which generally means that a lot of older men, you know, just going back, you know what I'm saying, historically in time, like if you are a king, if you are a prime, if you are the prime chief, you might have, you know, ceremonially many wives, as it were, but you might have your one main squeeze. Like, for example, the king of Swaziland, right? Every year, you know, the young girls go, and in essence, like, them is all his wives, like ceremonially. You understand what I'm saying? Even though they're not his wife, but he gets to, you know, you understand how this works, right? Now, as older men, as young men, we just don't have resources unless you're like the prince, or, you know what I'm saying, you're already wealthy, but there's still like establishing a marriage, right? So chances are, if you're 18, you're not going to have 3 wives. Now, older man might, a person in middle age might. Now, like, you know what I'm saying? So like a young man who isn't married, here's the dynamic, right? A younger man who isn't necessarily married might find himself, you know, sexually engaged with an older woman, right? If the younger women are taken up by the older men. You see what I'm saying? Marriage in and of itself takes a bit of time, generally, for most people. So, you know what I'm saying? Polygamy, you know, if you have more women, then generally some men are going to have more than one partner. You know what I'm saying? And, you know what I'm saying? That's just the natural sorting of things. Now, as far as the women, you know, and you know, it's different with child. You know, we're speaking of marriage with child rearing. You know, a woman can only have one child at a time for an extended period of time. You know what I'm saying? It's not like if you're want to have that lineage, a woman isn't going to have children with multiple men. That it's different. You understand what I'm saying? Like polyandry is different with you know what I'm saying? It's still that it's just a different vibe. Now, you know what I'm saying? That's from a woman's perspective, it's different. I wouldn't encourage that. That's just a situation where, you know what I'm saying, more, you know, if there are more women than men, it would kind of make more sense that the women would share a man, as it were. It's not so much that how would I say it? It's different. Like, if you're a woman, you know what I'm saying, if you're you know what I'm saying, if you're trying to build a family, optimally you would do it relatively young, not as young as you can, but I mean, you know what I'm saying, there's dynamics involved. If children aren't taught to pair bond, you know, just you know, just have a sense of understanding and complementary as a young age as men, and they see, you know, the women as the future mates, right? You just do stuff in the community and you recognize the complementarity of that. As you grow up and you develop, you will then see, you will have much more of a sense of pairing. If you know, in modern societies where I just don't think it's like actually encouraged as young people to see, you know, to even just to be paired up in a way with you know what I'm saying, your complement. That's not going to happen. Then you're going to have these imbalances where you might, you know what I'm saying, where you have nowadays where it's not so much the men having, you know what I'm saying, having more than one woman. The women have more than one man, and that's proved by women having children by multiple men. You know what I'm saying? It's if you see, trying to see what I'm trying to say, like, polygamy is it has its place and is superior. I hope that it doesn't fall apart, because it is kind of daring. Because I mean, naturally, as the leader of his country, if he can't keep his household in order, it's going to be an awful look, to say the least. But you know what I'm saying, if he can demonstrate, leadership in the household and the country. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be polygamous. It just means that marriage is a dominant and formidable institution that through himself proves that a man, if he's in a strong position, can indeed take care of more than one woman. And I think ultimately it would be a better sign. I would say that anyone who wants him to fail might be kind of jealous that he has more than one woman. And that's all I would say about that.
Appreciate that, IBG. Black Steel was here for a second. I guess he dropped off. So we'll go to Buana next. Buana, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. So what? Real Black Gentleman said something important. What is in terms of what he was saying just now. When Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, right? He was the so-called the most powerful man in the free world. And the second most powerful person at that time was not the vice president. It was Michelle Obama. Why would I say that? Because on paper, it would seem or appear like the vice president was the second most powerful man. But in reality, the person who sleeps in the bed with the president has more influence over the president who is the final decision maker, as opposed to someone who don't sleep in the same bed as him. So that person who has that role is a very important person. Very important person. So imagine, if you will, that for this particular gentleman, he has two people, that have his ear, have the president ear. Now the president is in control of the whole country. So one wife can tell him, I want you to do this, doing bedroom talk, and then another wife might tell him to do the exact opposite. So depending on who he favors in that scenario, that may be the decision of millions of people. How millions of people are going to live. I am not anti I'm not anti-polygamy in terms of Africa. I think that's not. I don't consider it as a moral or immoral thing. By the way, let me just say this: the brother says that the Caribbean people are unaware in terms of the practice of polygamy. We don't call it polygamy, but trust me, my friend, they've been practicing polygamy in the Caribbean forever. Trust me about that. But we just don't call it that. But I would say that these rules in terms of the president having dual wives, I think that the issue I may have is at the end of the day, you don't have, when you defer to a president, when you defer into the influence is going to go to either one wife or the other wife. And I think that sometimes there's a slippery slope in that scenario, because any decisions he may make may be influenced by one wife or the other. And I think that sometimes that could be, I don't know, it could be the decision may be opposed to one another, because I feel like in his personal relationships, it may be a decision that he is torn on. So I think that it creates almost like a helter-skelter situation. Now, I don't know how he's going to work that out. I don't know how he's going to work that out. Maybe he has in the past, but I think that when you lead in a country, I think that there's a whole lot of uncertainty that comes in that scenario. A whole lot of uncertainties. And one may say, as Oni did, that if he was living only in Senegal itself and had to only relate to Senegalese culture, that's one thing. But we're living in a globalized world now, where you have to deal with other international issues the husband may have to face, and decisions on an international level that the husband may have to decide. So I mean, some may say two heads are better than one, but what if, or three heads are better than one? When three people come together and make decisions. Well, what if one wife may say, I don't like this thing for the country, and another wife may say, I do like this thing for the country. How is he going to come down with this? It's like maybe he may come down on who's the favorite wife. I don't know, man. I just think that it could be a slippery slope in terms of making decisions for a whole lot of people. and and I don't know how it's actually going to play out. I just have to sit back and wait and see. But for me, I don't know. It could be a disaster, but I just have to wait and see how this actually plays out on an international level and him being a head of state. I do know though that before there was this guy and before there was Jacob Zuma, Mobutu married two sisters. He married two sisters. I don't well, you see how that well people say well you see how the Congo turned out, but I don't really don't know how this is gonna play out on an international stage. I really don't know, but I'll leave it there. Thanks, Goku.
Before I go to the next panelist who joined us, I want to ask those of you who are here who have spoken, do y'all agree with Buana that Michelle Obama was the second most powerful person during Obama's presidency?
No.
I mean, probably not. I mean, but the thing is, I don't know to what extent men are like listening to their wives, on public policy. Like I mean, that could just be projection. I don't also I don't know. I mean, I think the only time I think that a wife was really in that shit might have been Hillary Clinton, but I don't know. As far as Michelle, she didn't really strike me as like really impacting geopolitical decisions. I think she had like a health initiative, but I wasn't really paying attention to American politics. I still don't. But I don't think she was like again because I can see for myself, for instance, because I do projection. I don't see me, listening to my lady or whatever on geopolitical issues per se. I mean, I'm not saying that I would not listen to anything, but just especially like if we're talking about like traditional Africa, a lot of times like these women are there to like have children. You know what I mean? Like Michelle Obama was a sophisticated woman, but like a lot of times, especially in Africa, like you might not necessarily find those sophisticated women like that. Like those really politically ambitious type women, like because they usually don't make great wives, honestly. So I don't know how Barack Obama's relationship with Michelle was, but I think it seems like he was a little bit more serious about national security. And I don't think she was necessarily like in the private rooms getting, so but I don't know. I mean, maybe he wrote in his autobiography and Buana knows better, but I don't know.
All right, I just thought I'd ask that question because I didn't really get that sense either, but I just wanted to see what others thought. With that said, though, let's get to the latest panelist to join us tonight. That'll be Black Steel. How are you this week, sir?
I'm doing good. Good evening to the panel. Hope everyone's having a good night.
Yes, sir.
So, how's everyone doing? How you doing, Oni, Buana?
What's going on, Black Steel, man? We miss you, brother. We miss you.
Yeah, man. I'm here now. So it's okay. Listen, bro. Chill out that toxic masculinity. But anyways, yeah. So, I don't really think that polygamy is a big deal. Okay. So this is something that's being done between two consenting adults. It's in their culture. Senegal is a largely Muslim country. And from my understanding, Islam allows you to have up to 4 wives as long as they're being treated correctly and treated fairly. As in, you can't favor one wife over the other. You have to, make sure that each of your wives is provided for. So if he has the means and the women are willing, I don't really see this as a problem. Even on the world stage, it's crazy. You can have world leaders who are authorizing genocide, but a man having 2 wives might be a stretch too far. That's crazy. So I don't think it's really a problem. I'm more concerned with his politics more so than what he does in the bedroom. That would be my main focus. How is he treating the people of Senegal? And if the people in that country don't seem to have a problem with it, I don't see it as an issue. I think that is something that really there are bigger fish to fry in Senegal than whether or not the president has 2 wives or not. Now, as far as the question about the first lady having influence, it really depends on the presidency, right? So if you go back and you look at, just for example, in U.S. history, Ronald Reagan's second term, they believed Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's. So Nancy Reagan really pulled a lot of shit. She really called a lot of the shots. If you go a little bit further back, President Madison, Dolly Madison did a lot of things. Eleanor Roosevelt did a lot of things. But it really depends on the president. Many times it's like Trump. Melania Trump didn't do shit, when it came down to it. Jill Biden doesn't really do too much of anything. She's not influencing foreign policy. Maybe she should, the way Biden's fucking up. Maybe she should do something. It can't be worse than what's going on right now. But yeah, but it really would depend on the president. And really
Hillary Clinton too, Black Steel. Hillary Clinton. Remember her too.
Yeah, now Hillary Clinton did a lot. Hillary Clinton probably one of the more ambitious first lady. I don't think any other first lady actually ran for president who actually served as Secretary of State. So Hillary Clinton was very active, both during the presidency and afterwards. So, but I think Hillary Clinton is more of an exception than the rule in many cases. But it really depends on the president. I think Hillary Clinton had her own aspirations before she even married Bill Clinton. But I think also too, many of these people, they just, like you said, they're there to bear children, and you don't want this power corporate woman climbing the ladder. You just need her to be your wife and be supportive. And he has 2 women that are supportive. More power to him. That's not my thing, because 1 woman is enough of a headache. But if that's what works for him, more power to you, bro. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Also, I would like to think that he vetted them and they align with him politically. I would like to think that's what he did. Hopefully that's what he did. Let's welcome in our brother Anthony McPhail this week. Anthony, how are you? Unmute your mic, Anthony.
Hey, what's going on, Coco? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you this week?
I'm doing fine. How are y'all brothers doing, man?
Good, man. We hope you get your Appleton.
Good, man. How you doing?
Yeah.
Peace,
hey, man, I was just thinking about it. I say, man, as much trouble as I have with one woman, having 3 of them, 2 or 3 of them, you know what I'm saying? That needs to be the last thing I need to be thinking about. But I say that, man, I don't see it as a problem, though, man. Because if you look, we can look back on our history as African people. Like, we can go back to the 1890s in Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik. His wife was his chief advisor. So they advised him through a lot of things, when he was going through that little conflict with the Italians. You know what I'm saying? And also she fought on the field with him. But if we can go down the line, man, there's African kings and leaders who had as their chief advisor their wives. And conducting international diplomacy and things like that. So I figure, I look at it, as long as he has his head on straight, and as long as the ladies had their head on straight, I don't see it as a problem, man. So that's what I think about it.
I appreciate that, Anthony. In the chat, Trick Happy says polygamy is bad when the sex balance is good and people are still doing it. I don't mind an elite doing it, especially having a black wife. But to at that, you have to keep in mind that Arabs enshrine polygamy. Hold on. You got to mute your mics when you're not speaking. Your noise going on. We have to keep in mind that Arabs enshrine polygamy because of their sex imbalances due to warfare, which proves my point. Only says, well, he's the president, so he's definitely an elite. With that said, does anyone have any last thoughts? Anything you heard someone say, anything you saw in the chat, any last thoughts on this prompt?
I think RBG said it. He could be married to Steve and Zeke. So look at the bright side. Like this is, again, married to a black woman, married to 2 black women, doesn't really make a difference, Me personally, if I was, I don't know what they look like. Me personally, if I had 2 wives, they'd be 2 baddies. You know what I'm saying? like that's it. But they cute probably. I don't know. I'm talking about, I don't know their body, but what I'm saying is, He's just doing like there's nothing here. You know, I don't think this is the real story. Now, if he now and you just got to be grateful that it's not, you know, so rainbow colors, you know, because that's a possibility in the future. You know, him doing this traditional stuff is kind of saying, look, we're not even falling for that rainbow shit. You know what I mean? We're not just straight. We're twice as straight as the rest of y'all. You know what I'm saying? That's it.
I like that actually, Oni. No, we ain't just straight. It's not just straight pride. We twice straight. I like that shit. Good one. And good one, real black gentleman. I didn't mean to ignore your comment when you said he could be married to Steve and Zeke. So look at the bright side. Trigger Happy 262 plus agreed with you. Said agreed. RBG, good for the image of our people, unlike these other leaders with French wives. So I appreciate that, RBG, and Trigger Happy. Since there's no last thoughts on this prompt, we're making good time. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 tonight. I want to thank everyone who's on the panel tonight. Oni, Buana, RBG, Black Steel, Anthony. Thank you guys for coming through. Thank all you guys in the chat. Keep the comments coming. Share the show on your social media. Let other people know what you're doing, where you're at. In the meantime, Shoot the Breeze topic number 5 tonight. I don't know why this is doing that. Shoot the Breeze topic number 5 tonight says bringing back the keto diet topic and cutting out sugar and carbs. This doctor makes a better case that carbs are not bad, but the kind of carbs you eat is the issue. What are your thoughts? So this came with a link. We'll watch the video as always, and then we'll have a conversation on it.
In this video, we're going to talk about the truth on carbs and whether low-carb diets are the way to go. Hey everyone, my name is Tino. I have a master's in nutrition and I post weekly videos on plant-based nutrition, fitness, and vegan lifestyle tips. So if you're new here, definitely subscribe. So a very popular topic in nutrition is low-carb dieting. Many people claim that we should be limiting or avoiding carbs in order to be as healthy and slim as possible. But are these claims true? I talked with Dr. Milton Mills, a medical doctor at the United Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and who was also featured in the popular film What the Health, and here's what he had to say. I want to get your thoughts on carbohydrates. There seems to be this notion that it's the cause to the diabetes and obesity epidemic. What are your thoughts on that?
One of the most pernicious trends in sort of modern nutrition is this low carb foolishness. And people think that they're actually doing something that's good for them by going low carb, but they aren't, because our bodies need carbs. Every day, 25% of the energy you burn is used up by your brain alone. The human brain only weighs 3 pounds, but uses 25% of the energy we burn every day. And it's all in the form of sugar. So, and carbohydrates, glucose. That's what the brain uses.
Right.
And that's why when people who have diabetes, if their blood sugar level goes too low, they will go into a coma because the brain cannot function without it. So our bodies are designed to utilize starch, utilize carbohydrates. The problem comes when we take in the wrong types of carbohydrates, and I'll explain that in a minute. But the fact is that human beings are so adapted to a starch-based diet that we actually have 6 times more starch-digesting enzymes than any other primate. The problem that with carbs is the fact that in most Western countries, people are eating processed carbs. And
Right.
by processed carbs, what I mean is they're eating refined sugar and they're eating grains that have had their fiber removed. So instead of eating like whole grain rice, like brown rice or wild rice, we take the fiber out and we eat white rice. Instead of eating whole wheat, we turn it into white flour. And the problem is that once you take the fiber out of a plant food, the starch can be broken down and absorbed so quickly, it's like eating pure sugar. And what that will do is it'll cause a spike in insulin levels. And it's true that if your insulin levels are constantly elevated, it prevents your body from burning fat. And so what ends up happening is that that can promote weight gain. But it's even a little worse because when you actually look at what most Westerners are eating, they're eating refined carbohydrates that are loaded with grease. So the brain is craving carbohydrate because that's what it needs to run itself on. And it tells us, hey, go eat, go stoke up on some carbohydrate. But what do? We go out and we eat you know, something like a donut, which is white flour and grease, and insulin level, sugar level spikes, insulin goes up, sugar level goes down, and then suddenly we find ourselves hungry again. And instead of eating the high starch foods that our brain really and our body really want, we're eating proportionately more grease, which ends up going straight into our fat cells. So again, that promotes weight gain. And so, what some, again, very um, poorly informed individuals have suggested is that, oh, well, if you eliminate the carbs, it'll help you burn weight. And that's true to an extent because it kind of puts the body on a starvation economy and you have to burn protein, and which is, again, very stressful from a metabolic standpoint. And studies have shown over time that low carb diets are associated with higher risk for chronic disease, actually poorer performance on tests of mental function, which makes sense because you're not giving the brain what it needs. And it also is associated with a greater risk of all cause mortality. When patients ask me about these low carb diets, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe you'll lose some weight, but what's the point of leaving a thin corpse? It's much better to eat whole plant foods. And that's why this term has come into use, whole food plant-based diet. Because what it's telling you is that you can eat donuts, potato chips, Coca-Cola, and be plant-based. But it's a horrible and unhealthy way to be plant-based. You need to be eating whole plant foods because those plant foods have fiber in them. And it turns out that the absorption, that when carbohydrates are surrounded by fiber, they're in a sense protected. And that actually modulates the absorption of the carbohydrate, prevents your blood sugar levels from spiking too high, but it also prevents them from falling rapidly. And so it keeps your blood sugar level in a more stable range. You don't get hungry as often. Your brain is happy, your body is happy, and the fiber does all sorts of wonderful things when it gets to the colon and gets broken down by the bacteria in the colon. And that's why one of the most exciting new areas in human physiology research is looking at the microbiome. That is the makeup of the bacteria in our colons, because we're now understanding that they need fiber to do all of the great things for us that they could be doing. But that is a subject for another video.
So it sounds like maybe people are just confused about carbohydrates in general. They think of like donuts when they really should be thinking about potatoes and whole grains.
Exactly, and whole plant foods, absolutely.
Right.
That and even potatoes. Um, you, you know, when most people think of potatoes, they think of russet potatoes. But russet potatoes are essentially obese potatoes. They are potatoes that have been selected for through selective breeding to be just loaded with starch. And so their starch to fiber ratio is thrown off. It's much better if you're going to use potatoes to use the smaller varieties like the gold, Yukon Gold, or the red potatoes. And if you cut into those potatoes, you'll notice that their flesh has a more waxy texture as compared to the sort of dry, crumbling texture of a russet. And that's because they have a much higher fiber content. And so they have a much better impact on our physiology because of the fiber that's in these potatoes. And the same is true of like sweet potatoes and yams, yucca, and so forth. Those other root vegetables have a lot of fiber in them. And so even though they have carbohydrates, that carbohydrate absorption is modulated by the starch, gives you a much better health profile. So again, the thing to remember about carbs is all carbs are not equal. The bad carbs are the processed carbs that had the fiber removed. The good carbs are the whole plant foods that have the fiber in them. I do a lecture on chemistry for understanding nutrition, looking at carbohydrates, and I compare it to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. If you remember the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll was this wonderful physician who did great things for people, and when he was his normal self, was a good doctor. But for some crazy reason, he concocted this potion that when he drank it, turned him into this monster called Mr. Hyde, who went around killing people. Well, that's very similar to what we do with plant foods. Plant foods in their normal natural state are loaded with fiber, have good sources of carbohydrate, very healthy for us. But when we get our hands on them and we modify them and turn them into the nutritional version of Mr. Hyde, that's when they become bad for us and start to damage our health.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a good point. We want to start thinking about food in terms of whole and process. I think
Right.
that's the key message, and it's really important.
Right, and to try to avoid refined sugars, as much as possible. Now, everybody's going to have the occasional piece of cake or the occasional pie or something like a dessert. Again, if you have it on your birthday or at a special dinner party, that's not a problem. But when you're swilling down sodas all day, drinking lots of refined juices, or eating lots of candy and lots of sweets, that's when you start to really throw your physiology off, and it becomes very unhealthy. So you want to avoid not only the processed carbs, but also the refined sugars.
So I hope this helped clear things up about carbohydrates and low carb diets. As you heard from Dr. Mills, low carb diets are flat out dangerous. They increase your chances of chronic diseases, all-cause mortality, and decrease your mental performance, which you could say is a bit of a no-brainer, as a quarter of the energy you consume is used by your brain in the form of sugar, pun intended. Carbs are not the enemy, but not all carbs are created equally as well. You can't compare donuts to sweet potatoes. Whole plant-based foods are loaded in fiber, which helps your body steadily absorb the sugar from the food. It helps in satiation, and it helps build a healthy microbiome. So now that you guys know about all the benefits of a high-carb plant-based diet and the consequences of a low-carb animal-based diet, it still blows my mind that anybody will go through this just for some temporary weight loss. What are your guys' thoughts on low-carb diets? Are you for them? Are you against them? Post your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys want to check out another video I did with Dr. Mills on omega-3s, I'll have that link in the description.
Yeah, so the thing I kind of zoned in on, there was a time many years ago, I used to be into juicing, and the first person, because a lot of what Dr. Mills is saying, as I was talking to Trigger Happy in the chat about, Sebi was saying this. A lot of people wrote Dr. Sebi off, saying that he wasn't actually a doctor and all this type of stuff. But more and more we're seeing more practitioners of medicine, people with degrees. We're seeing them come forward and saying a lot of the same stuff that Sebi was saying. And I know a lot of people will bring up, oh, well, there was a German guy saying the stuff before Sebi. Hey, man, Sebi was saying it for his people. The German guy wasn't. Sebi's one of the only people I ever saw talk about, like, the movement, the Black Power movement, and how come no one's addressing, like, Black leaders and stuff. No one's addressing nutrition. The thing that I zoned in on was, back in the day, I used to do a lot of juicing of fruits and vegetables and stuff, and Sebi was the first guy I ever saw who said, hey, man, the problem with all that juice and stuff is you're removing the fiber. So naturally, you're going to get all the sugars. And he made the analogy of, like, the fiber is like a time release capsule, because you have to break down the fiber. In this video, they called it, Dr. Milton called it protecting, right? Protecting the sugars. But because you have to first break down the fiber to access the sugar, it gives you time for your body, for your cells to utilize that sugar fully, right? So it's an interesting conversation. And like like I said before when we touched on the keto diet topic, it's something if we're seriously talking about like getting to be powerful people again, we're gonna have to check our health. By the way, that's one of the kind of concepts Oni is talking about in his latest book too, by the way. So make sure to check that out. Without further ado, though, let me stop my rambling. Black Steel, what say you?
So, I got to pay more attention to my nutrition. That's something I really got to do as I get older. Um, I think he's right, though. I mean, I don't really have the information to say he's wrong, but I would say that it's definitely something to look into because diet is killing so many of us, and we just not really something that's really taken into account. But health-related diseases such as like diabetes and chronic heart disease is really the number one killer of African people, especially here in the United States. So what he's saying is definitely something we need to look into because this diet, like for example, he said about white rice. I had no idea that white rice wasn't good for you. I'm thinking, oh, I'm eating rice, that's healthy, right? So here I am. I'm a student, just like everybody else is. So I definitely think that cutting that, like he was saying, it makes sense. Carbohydrates or sugar, your body needs it, it craves it. It just needs the right ones. So with that said, I think that he's onto something, and it's really something I want to look into myself to try to improve my diet. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. I'm reminded of Layla Africa, Dr. Layla Africa. He used to say, if it's white and you're black, it ain't good for you. So white bread, white rice, white sugar, white flour, all that old shit, or white cauliflower, like there's very little nutritional value in cauliflower, for example, right? Anything that's mostly white, right, from my understanding, is very low nutritional value, which is why they push like green leafy vegetables and things of that nature, right? Thank you for that, Black Steel. RBG, Real Black Gentleman, what say you?
Yeah, I think how would I say it? It's all. I think part of me understands that you are what you eat, but what you eat is determined by your environment. So if you live, if you live in, what I'm saying, swampy areas, you'll probably eat a lot of rices and a lot of like, plants that can survive a lot of water or whatnot. Part of it is that I think everything is in balance. I don't think it's so much, you know what I'm saying? I think I'm in agreement with the carbs thing, definitely. The refining of it, you know what I'm saying, is definitely true. If you have like naturally, like, you know what I'm saying, if everything is ultra refined, it goes to your cells that much quicker. You know what I'm saying? Molasses digests slower than sugar or honey, for example. Let's say, how do I say it? As far as like meat consumption, I think that definitely varies. If you have a lot of fruits and vegetables, you'll tend not to necessarily eat so much meat. But if you have meat, you know what I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with eating, you know what I'm saying, a healthy amount of meat at any given serving, as long as it's not necessarily, as long as your diet is varied. If you eat a lot of meat, at some point you probably eat a lot of vegetables just to balance yourself out. And that's where I personally am not, I'm not the best at that. I ain't gonna lie. I know, you know what I'm saying, you should definitely, but I do try to watch my fat intake, as it were. I try to watch the types of fats that I eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing. It's like, if you're frying foods, it's not necessarily, you know what I'm saying, the best, but if you have like peanut oil or like sunflower oil, you know what I'm saying, the type of, you know what I'm saying, you have saturated fat and you have the unsaturated fat. And if you're frying things in like a lot of unsaturated fat, or like, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot better, you know what I'm saying, it's not as, you know what I'm saying, thick on your system, I guess. And you know what I'm saying, there's ways like, sugar, if you have honey, it's the best, right? You know what I'm saying? Honey is definitely better than sugar, cane sugar, but I guess brown sugar is better than white sugar, right? There's always these degrees in which naturally, if you're buying it from the store, like companies refine their products so they can get more out of it. You know what I'm saying? That's why they, they make their own sugar, they make their own flour. You know what I'm saying? They, or at least the companies that they buy it from as like bakeries or, producers of products, they're going to get it from the major producers of that. And they're going to, get the, the GMO the corn and wheat. And that's going to be, no nutrition, just bulk, fiber mass. And then they can break it down. And so it definitely doesn't have, because they refined all the genes out of it. It's just bulk mass. It's not really any of the nutritional substance of the progenitor plants that it actually came from, because then, just bred for a certain the qualities of bulk, that at the expense of actual plant, essence that actually gives you, nutrition, as it were. So there's that. As far as like, a lot of times people will put preservatives in foods, but in the advent of like freeze drying and strong flash freezing techniques, you don't need to put a whole bunch of preservative in food. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of food, like the problem, back in the, people, would put, well, not our people, we eat fresh. Like, well, if companies, these white folks always had all these preservatives in their canned foods, so it lasts on the shelf forever, so that they could make money off of a product. But like in doing that, you change, heat and cold changes enzymes and proteins and make them not the same protein that your body needs. And so it reduces that from the food and makes it a shell of what it was. You could take the same foods nowadays, instead of like using the chemical preservatives and just the raw, just stuff of the 40s and 50s and 60s, and just if people, because people know consumption patterns, they know how long food lasts, so they don't need so much preservative at all to keep food fresh. But companies don't do that, because they make all these, because other companies make these preservatives and they have to sell these preservative chemicals. You see how the cycle goes on and goes on. Part of it is recognizing food being as, if whatever you eat, you have to drink too. So if you're drinking, water, you'll clean yourself out more than if you're drinking pop. And it's all about degrees. If you're drinking fresh juice, it's certainly better than drinking pop, but water is definitely the best. It's all about recognizing what you're eating. I don't want to ramble, but I agree with them. I just think that, like I said, if you eat a little bit of more meat than otherwise, that I don't see that as being unhealthy at all. I think, black people are omnivores. But I mean, you are what you eat. Some people are natural vegetarians, and some people want to eat meat 2-3 times a day. And that's, that's to each his own, as long as everyone has their own balance. And some people, if you are active with your body, there's a net balance in, what you take in and what, how your body uses and what you release. I don't even know how else to say it. Just avoid the white man's cooking, I guess.
Thank you for that, RBG. I will say, I think meat consumption in the past was a seasonal thing. I don't think that was a regular thing. And I think we've now made it this regular thing. And that's the issue. To speak to something RBG said, pasteurizing food, overly processed, overly cooked, by the way. I mean, there's no foods again. There's no enzymes. If you denature an enzyme, you change its structure, you change its function. And so once you denature, there's no function. And you don't benefit from it. And for people who might not understand what that means that your body has to do all the work to decompose that food, as opposed to some of the enzymes that will be present that will help in the decomposition of the breakdown of that plant and animal material. So that's the conundrum with eating meat so much. But I do think that Trigger Happy did agree with RBG as well. He said, yeah, I think that's the thing. Meat is definitely done among groups who have a lack of vegetation, but I think with the advent of technology, we can change that to a degree with trade. He says the only maybe critique I could also levy to Milton Mills is how exactly do pastoralists deal with this topic. Other than that, he's on point. So I appreciate you guys' comments so far. That was Real Black Gentleman. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, what say you? Unmute your mic. Don't forget.
Okay. Can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, man. That was. Hey, I agree with a lot of what Real Black Gentleman said, man. This is what is this doctor's name?
Milton Mills, Dr. Milton Mills.
Milton Mills. Yeah, I got to catch. I got to catch up with him a little bit. But yeah, because he said a lot of things I like, man. And you know, and like you said, Dr. Sebi, Dr. Laila Africa, they both talked about a lot of this. Also, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about this. You know what I'm saying? In his time, when he wrote a book about it called How to Eat to Live. You know, a long time ago. Yeah, he wrote a book called, and I'm gonna tell you another person who wrote a book, a health book, a long time ago, way before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was the former heavyweight champion of the world. Jack Johnson wrote a health book. You know, back like in the 1920s, man, about how to eat to live, the right food.
Anthony, can you get the name of that book for me, please? Because I didn't know that. I didn't know that, brother.
I tried to do it because it was after he had lost the title. You know, he went into a lot of other stuff, but he had wrote a book. You know, and he's talking about how the book flopped and everything. But it was a book about how to eat, about healthy eating, man. You know, because he was almost like a vegan before everybody else was. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, that's a deep topic, man. It hit home because, hey, man, look here, me. I weigh 320 pounds, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big dude, man. I weigh 320. You know, and I eat more meat than I should. You know, I've been cutting back on it. I've been trying to get more, eat more, get more on a plant-based, diet and everything, man. A plant-based, well, I don't want to call it a diet, but I've been trying to eat more vegetables, man. I've been doing it. I lost a little bit. Cause, hey, man, look, I was up around 350. But, you know, I'm down to 320 now, man, and I do a lot of walking and exercise, and that's something that I hadn't did in a long time. But yeah, man, that man, you know, I died, man. That's very important for us, man. So, like, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, them sugars. I mean, I'm gonna sound hypocritical, man, because when he was talking about the sugars, and the main thing when he said about that processed food, you know what I'm saying? Not just the food by itself, that processed food. Cause man, I just cooked some candy yams the other day, loaded full of sugar. You know what I'm saying? You already had me think about throwing them out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I got russet potatoes. I mean, you know, I probably shouldn't have listened at that point, man. Because he gonna have me throwing out some stuff. But yeah, that was deep, man. It really got me thinking too, man. I mean, I always think about, you know, my health and everything. All black people should. But man, yeah, that was a deep prompt, man. And yeah, I'm gonna see if I can kind of work with some of what he say. I want to learn a little bit more about it, man. You know, I'd knock off right there, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that testimony there.
Yeah.
And I like Juan, I was surprised to hear. I'm gonna have to mute the mic of the noise. But like Juan, I was surprised to hear that Jack Johnson had written a book. I had never heard that before. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says that's pretty dope. Jack Johnson is pretty cool. Apparently, he was an archaeologist as well, I think. I learned that by reading the paper about the UNIA chapter in Australia. Very interesting stuff. RBG also gives his testimony. He says, I was 230 and now I'm under 200. Well done. Well done, both of you, to be real. But yeah, when we talk about organization, as Trigger Happy mentioned, the UNIA, that's one of the things I have to give the Muslims, the Nation of Islam Muslims especially, I have to give them their credit for that. That's like a big part of their thing. You mentioned Elijah Muhammad writing that book, which I have as well, How to Eat to Live. There's two parts, actually, right? And I think it was Buana, but last time we talked about diet, who said something that I'm trying to get to as well, that eating one meal a day thing, the OMAD diet. Or instead of saying diet, we could say liberty, like the Rastas say, right? But yeah, it's something that if this is something I'm starting to use to judge people who are speakers within the Black community. If you're not talking also about health, I cannot take you too seriously. If that's not a major part of your platform too, I cannot take you too seriously. With that said, I got, who was that? RBG. With that said, let me go to Oni. Oni, you've heard everything everyone has said except Juana. What say you to it?
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. I want to say this though. When you giving out health advice, you gotta be like, you personally should have that physical fitness that people are aspiring to. And the reason why I'm saying that is because an unfortunate reality for us as human beings is that we don't know who to trust. And of course, the guy's a doctor, so we say, okay, let's trust him because he's a doctor, right? But of course, there's a lot of doctors that you shouldn't trust. Either way, there's like a guy on, like, everybody heard of this guy. He's on YouTube ads pretty much, where he's just like, hey, this is stupid diet, what you should do, blah, blah, blah. And some people, say they looked into him and they debunked him and all that kind of stuff. Good. But the reality is this. The thing that guy has going on for him is that he's fit as fuck. Like, he's fit as fuck, so that to the point where you look at it and say, well, shit, I want to get fit like this motherfucker too. Right? And so if you have this, if you're saying, hey, look, man, get this plant-based diet, and you'll blah, 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 right? Now, the only thing is this. Maybe being fit as fuck is not a good, maybe that's not a good, maybe that's not a healthy way to live. Maybe. And maybe he should just elaborate that. But otherwise, it just seems like, you're telling me how to do something that you can't do. You know what I mean? And that's that's a recurring problem that we have as a people, honestly, where a lot of times we're telling people how to do things that we don't know how to do, and the phrase is those who can't do teach. Whereas I think it's really for us to, if you're telling people, hey, look, man, this is how you could achieve a certain level of fitness, you should have that level of fitness that people are trying to achieve. Because no disrespect to the brother, but he looked kind of pudgy, right? I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, obviously, kind of looks like how my dad looks. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's not like I got no disdain for it. I don't got no dislike for it. But it's like I can achieve pudgy. Why would I give up, the foods I enjoy, right, to be pudgy? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to give up the foods I enjoy, I want to be competitive, athletic, or more competitive, more athletic, more fit. I don't want to give up my foods and then be, be pudgy, because I'm already pudgy. You know what I mean? But other than that, I do agree with a lot of what he said. As far as what Trigger Happy said about the giving up on meat, and not giving up on meat, but what do you call plant based? Like, I'm not convinced. I tried it at one point. I nearly passed out, nearly had a coma. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really I don't really see a reason for that. Also, I believe I think the whole idea of whole foods is underrated. Here in Africa, you're more probably going to get whole foods than otherwise. So that's a good thing. But as far as as far as I'm concerned, like if you're encouraging a certain health model, and it's just like there's no evidence of a good difference between your model and the model that is all like the lazy model, if you will, right? Then most people are just gonna be inclined to the lazy model, and that's all I wanted to say.
I appreciate that, Oni. I get where you're coming from, because that's how it is with most things, right? People like to a lot of religious people like their pastors to be pimping, big pimping. They like to see, if you're preaching this prosperity thing, we want to see it. I don't know if it's always the case for me. I don't know that I necessarily need to see a chiseled black doctor in front of me, because I know that a couple of things I know is that doctors are bad at their own advice. And I know that, not everything people know is what they do. But I get the sentiment that, I kind of wouldn't want Lizzo, pushing a diet on me, and she's Lizzo. No offense to Lizzo. So I get it. In the chat, Trigger Happy 262 said something interesting. I'm going to get to the rest of you guys in a second. He says, I don't know if the metric should be that Milton Mills have to have a six-pack and body. He is a doctor, not necessarily a bodybuilder. I kind of like that. Real Black Gentleman said Jack Johnson was an archaeologist. That's wild. That's some next level effort. Yeah, I had no idea about that either. Shout out to Sister Raw, who's out there, saying greetings to all of us. Trigger says, my position is more so plant-based with small amounts of meat if you need that, but I think 100% plant-based seems to be the way with all the scientific evidence if done right. RBG said, physician, heal thyself. Yeah, I get it. Trigger says, I think the key, as he mentioned, is many vegans don't do their diet right. You have to essentially be varied and have a variety of foods. One type of food is doomed to fail, is what I understand. And that's something I'll say about, that's my one critique about Sebi's diet. So I did Sebi's diet, and I was able to do it for a year, and I saw really good results. But the problem with Sebi's diet is that, the foods that you can eat, the seasonings that you could use is so it's such a small pool that, maybe you could last a year doing it. For me, that's how long I could do it. Some people claim to be doing it their whole adult lives and stuff. I don't know, man. To me, it's just it's so few choices. So the tastes are all pretty much the same. And so it doesn't really captivate you like that. At least that was my experience with it. Someone else had a comment. Let me get to it real quick. Provide triggers for evolution. That sister's here today with us. She says, greetings. Dr. Eric Berg is considered an expert on the keto diet combined with intermittent fasting. He had millions of followers internationally. Is that I have to ask, is that a African guy? The Berg sounds something different. So anyway, with that said, before we go to the next panelist, let's welcome in our brother Kofi, the Black Critic, this week. How are you this week?
Hey, what's up? How y'all doing? What's up? I just came in late. I saw the topic there. Thanks for greeting me. It's pretty much about what's a better diet as far as like plant-based versus meat, correct? Essentially. Okay. Well, me, like, look, if you're gonna look like, if you guys would have seen me, I'm not the thinnest person in the world, but I used to be thin. But I I'm not fat, like huge fat, but I got some weight on me, so I'm not saying I'm the authority on diet. But far as a scientific standpoint, is that, and I like to go, too much of anything is not good. being 100% vegan is not good because your body needs protein. The protein that you will find in vegetables is not the same protein that you will find in meat. There's less meat. There's less protein in vegetables. There's different types of iron. There's keen iron and other type of iron, right? And you got to understand, as far as our body's concerned, the reason why we are so successful. I'm going to put on my lab coat right now. The reason why human beings and animals are so successful is because we have a diet that could be plant-based and it could be meat, right? So going through like thousands of years, if you can't hunt, right, you can always eat plants. If the plants are no good, you can always hunt. You have a wide variety of a food source. Most animals or most species only have one food source. Once that food source dies, they die, right? So a lot of successful species on this earth that's able to thrive for so long is because of their food source, right? Like bears, right? Bears eat plants, but bears can also eat fish and other things. So scientifically proven, a vegan diet is not per se the best diet because there's people that are vegans that still get cancer. So you can't say, well, you know, if you keep eating meat and you keep eating that, you're gonna get cancer. There's people that I know and celebrities that are strictly vegan that get cancer. So pretty much that's my 2 cents there. Oh, and about Sebi. I never really tried Sebi stuff, but there was a video about a medical doctor that was debunking Sebi stuff. But even before I saw that, I was listening to Sebi stuff and I turned it right off because he's saying the body, mucus is bad for the body. So he was telling you things to get rid of mucus. I turned it off right away because anyone that passed junior high school or high school science and you understand the anatomy of the human body, we have a mucus membrane, right? That's a part of our cells. Mucus, we have something that we have, even if you take something as simple as mucus in our noses, right? That's to catch dust, dirt, whatever that's in, you know, in that particular cavity to catch it. So mucus is not necessarily bad. And I'll listen to it again. I'll say, is he saying too much mucus is bad? Which is true. He was saying, no, mucus is bad. You need to eliminate from the body. From that, no disrespect to anyone who follows Sebi or whatever, but we need mucus in our bodies to help fight diseases and infections. And I'll pretty much end it there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, to me, at least, I'll say I think the Sebi thing is that the excessive mucus. That's the problem. And he pointed to, whenever you see most people with diseases, what's the one thing they're always overproducing? Bunch of mucus, HIV, AIDS patients, etc. And so he said a lot of mucus that comes up, this excess mucus, comes from the food that we eat as a byproduct, and there's some truth to that. Now, to say we don't need no mucus, I never heard him say it personally, but that, of course, that'd be ridiculous because, as you pointed out, we have the mucosal or mucous membranes within our body, and it's there for a purpose. It's there to capture and immobilize diseases and stuff like that. With that said, let's go to Buana. Buana, what's say to everything?
Yeah, I think that the brothers within our community, the brothers in particular, I think that health-wise, we are illiterate, you know, and I think that there needs to, especially when you're talking about being a Black nationalist or a revolutionary, I think that is an aspect of our fight that we really need to take seriously. You know, I think Garvey died at 52. You know, Carlos Cooks died at 52. Khalid Muhammad died at 53. You know, relatively young men, all young men. You know, Dr. What's the guy who made the blueprint for Black Power? He died a relatively young man as well. You know, and I think that our health is a serious issue when it comes to our so-called nationalistic and black nationalist fight. I think that that's a challenge that we need to take on. And I agree with Dr. Sebi. because when he said that no one is talking about it, I think that these are discussions that should be had. My personal health journey, and even though I still consider myself to a degree illiterate health wise, and I trying to work to correct that, is the rosters. The rosters for me used to talk about ITAL living, ITAL this, ITAL. I said, what's that? What's that? Yeah, I had to investigate these things. And after that, I read Malcolm X's book. I think Malcolm X, in his book, in autobiography of Malcolm X, he briefly discussed his eating habits in joining the nation. So I started to investigate that. And when I investigated that, that led me to how to eat to live, like my brother Anthony was talking about. I didn't know what is this, this eating one meal a day, and the Western world considered it to be intermittent fasting now, OMAD diet, 1 meal a day. But when he said it back in the day, he was considered, that was a very controversial thing to say, but I started to investigate that. And in doing that, because when you investigate, you become almost like a food scientist. And I may not have stuck with the diets that he prescribed, the actual foods, but eating 1 meal a day stuck in my head. How would this affect the body? And when I actually practiced that, I lost a considerable amount of weight, and I started to feel better. But my challenge was, when of late I went to the doctor, and the doctor said my blood pressure was very high, very high. Put me on pills and all that. Put me on pills. And I worked to get that down because it was like 180 over 110, some ridiculous thing. I didn't know what that meant until I had to investigate these kinds of things. Health is the next new frontier for us in terms of being Black revolutionaries and looking at the world. From our perspective, we need to understand our health better, because we're losing a whole lot of good brothers, right thinking brothers, because they don't understand health. You could make a grand revolutionary speech and do good works within their community, but if you're still going to eat that fried chicken or ham hock and shit like that, you're gonna die, brother. You're gonna die too soon. You're gonna die too soon. So I think that these are kinds of things that we should take on as a challenge within our community, because I think that we like tasty foods, but that white salt is gonna kill you. That flour, that white flour, that the naturized flour, that is gonna kill you definitely. That white sugar, all them white devils, they are gonna take you out. In terms of this particular brother right now, he's 66, I think. So I mean, I can get pudgy at 66. You can't play that kind of scholarship. I mean, looks can be deceiving, because very thin people are very ill. So this man may have very great blood pressure, and he could wake up in the morning with a clear mind at 66, jump out of bed at 66. I could take him being a little bit pudgy, because he's clear-minded. He is working at the top of his profession right now as a 66-year-old man, clear-headed doctor. And his health report might be extremely good. And when I went to the doctor and I got a health report, it broke down these specificities. And I would say to the brothers on the panel, go to the doctor, get a checkup every year. That is very important to see as a gauge to where you are and how to improve your situation health-wise. Let the doctor explain to you all the difficult things, all the details of what's in your body, what's in your stool, what's in your piss, all of that shit. You know what I mean? I think that the women do it more than we do. That's why they live longer. They investigate themselves. That's a part of self-care. And I think that we should also do the same practice, also the same kinds of things as well. And I think that what is keep us from the hospital sometimes is fear. It's fear. And I think that, you have to do the thing that you fear the most to cause the death of fear to be certain. You have to do the thing that you fear the most to cause the death of fear to be certain. So if you're afraid to go to the doctor, still go anyways. You need to get a gauge or barometer of where you are health-wise, so you could know what you need to do to improve your situation, so you can live on this planet a little bit longer and be a revolutionary a little bit longer. So that's what especially within our community, that's what I would suggest with our people to do, because you have a whole lot of overweight people who are dying at earlier ages. This is their next strategy, to put the devils in the foods, to take you out real fast. You know what I mean? To put all of the sugars, all of the bad things in the foods, where if you go to their neighborhoods, pure whole food stores. This is when Barack Obama was talking about food deserts. You know what I mean? You just put a bunch of sugar and fat, trans fats, and horrible carbohydrates within your community. That's a secret in food genocide. Yeah, they put the genocide, the little fry shit. They put that within your communities. But if you go to them communities, pure whole foods, fresh vegetables, and because we are attracted to taste, we are addicted to taste. You know, because we addicted to taste, that high sugar, that high salt content, that fry, it could take us out very, very quickly. That's their own form of genocide on us. And because we are health-wise, we are illiterate, they can get away with it. You know, so I would say to the brothers to investigate, you know, every now and again in terms of the foods that you eat every day, you know, and try to take supplements, which you're not necessarily getting from the things that you eat. Try to take supplements one a day and shit like that. You know, stick around a little bit longer. You know, but nutrition is very important, and I think that's something that we really need to investigate within our community. I'll leave it there, Koku.
No, well said, Bwana. Thank you very much for that. Well said. We definitely, it definitely needs to be a part of the so-called struggle. We definitely want to extend our lives, our time here on the planet. So that's well said. Something else you said, Bwana, which I think is true, is the fear thing. I think men especially, I think, have a fear of what that doctor gonna say this time, and we've gotta come off of that fear. We have a fear of white coats. We have to come off of that. And conversely, we need more of our people to get into medicine and holistic medicine and all that stuff too, because we mightn't be as fearful of the white coats if it was our people in them. You know, we had some atrocities done to us, not just in America, but in Africa and stuff too, with these other people in white coats. And I think we have that fear. And if we get more of our people into medicine in particular, and looking at medicine from an African perspective, I think that will help in alleviating a lot of that fear too. So, does anyone else have any last thoughts on this prompt? In the chat, if you guys would like to come back later on, check out the chat. Trigger Happy dropped a few different videos from Dr. Milton Mills, so make sure you go and check out those videos if you want to learn more about what the brother's perspective is on medicine. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. We're going to end at 11 thereabouts, so we're making good time. Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 says, how can we wrestle the control of our economic markets back? This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube as well. As soon as it comes up, I'll share my screen with you guys. Have a commercial going on here. Okay.
From people that's saying that the Arabs kind of run the thing in New York. Can you explain how Arabs have taken control of the illicit ganja trade market in NYC and its impact on the communities with residents that are predominantly Black?
In the book, in Ainsley Hamid's The Ganja Complex, Rastafari and Marijuana, he details the rise in chapter 6, The Ganja Complex in Brooklyn. He details the rise of the crack cocaine economy and the fall of the ganja economy, some of what I mentioned. So whilst Reagan and Siaga is doing all that, at home now on the street level, on the ground level, when Reagan does that, the book says he delivers would-be ganja smokers into the hands of crack dealers because the distribution networks were similar, as well as how the substance was used. It was similar. right? So a whole lot of destruction came with the crack epidemic. And in that, the book says that TNT, we know is Tuesdays and Thursdays, also Tactical Narcotics Unit, which Lutty Stink and Giuliani brought about, the now disgraced Giuliani brought about. And a lot of them lost their stores behind that, right? And in the book, it says when they lost their stores, Yemeni merchants popped up and bought those stores, right? And this is early 2000s. So they had control of the corner stores from the early 2000s. I knew anecdotally that the Arabs, particularly the Yemenis, took control of the cannabis market, but I knew empirically at the top of last year when I went to testify on the proliferation of illicit smoke shops in New York City at the city council. Testifying right before me was the Yemeni American Merchants Association of New York. I was like, whoa, I looked them up, Yemeni American Merchants Association of New York. And they said that they are immigrants, and usually immigrants get news the last, so they want to be a part of the license. To me, they were faking and feigning ignorance to the law, but they didn't fake or feign ignorance when it was time to switch over their corner stores to illicit smoke shops. You understand? The main thing for me is when you get, back in the days when you were making a marijuana purchase or transaction and you was getting it from a Herb Gates, a weed spot, a weed store, from a Bingy man, from a Rasta man, it wasn't, as far as I'm concerned, money transactions by themselves are inhumane. It's unhuman. You understand? When you bought herb from a Ras, it wasn't just that money transaction. You're getting a reasoning. You're getting a talking. You know this person was and is invested in his community, but he wasn't just selling herb. He was opening up an iTunes store. He was opening up a school. He was holding classes for children on a Saturday or a Sunday. You understand? You could find him in Prospect Park or whatever park. 1970s, 1980s, Rastafarian men, the sight of them were stabilizing factors in Black communities. I could tell you that. As a youth, I saw that. I seen a Rast, I'm like, oh, he's different. I don't know nothing about no weed. You understand? I just knew that man was different, and don't mess with him. But not no fear.
Just respect.
Yeah,
Honor.
simple.
Yeah, glory.
Yeah, I like when I don't gotta talk. You understand? So now, as Hamid mentions in the book, with the changeover from the ganja economy to the crack economy, they're selling weed now. The Arabs, Yemenis, they're selling weed now like how crack was sold. They don't care about the community. It's an extractive process. They're not pouring in nothing to the community. The funds, they're going back to wherever they're going back. They're building mansions. They're not staying in the community. They're not opening up no health food stores. Like I always have to say, it is haram for them to participate in this business, but they're still doing it. That should let them know, let you know that it's a lust for money. You understand? They can't go to their imam and tell them that they're doing this. If they are, I let you be the judge. You understand?
Where are they sourcing that herb from?
They're not sourcing it from upstate New York, legal cannabis. They're not sourcing it from Humboldt County. You understand? Much of the herb that's sold in illicit markets is coming from Oklahoma. The illicit growers in Oklahoma. You understand? And that's a fact. It's been documented.
Can you talk about the herb? Are you familiar with the herb being grown out there at all?
Oh, yes. As far as I'm concerned, the herb grown, so there's 3,800 illicit farms in Oklahoma, and that are operated by Chinese nationals. As far as I'm concerned, 3,800 illicit cannabis farms in Oklahoma are a direct response to the 100 years of humiliation that the West gave to China, along with the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars was when the British wanted control of the Chinese ports, Shanghai and Hong Kong, and the Chinese stood up and said, no, all right, they just flooded the country with opium and made mad dope fiends out of the men, which leads to the destruction of the society.
When did Chinese get into the herb business? Or from your knowledge, at least in the States?
Well, one would, let's say I don't know. Just look up when Oklahoma legalized. They legalized before New York. New York was 2021. I believe Colorado was like 2012, Cali 2014. So maybe 2017, 18, around then.
I gotta pause that quickly. I always get a strike for their music. That guy said a lot of stuff that I've seen playing out while living here in Brooklyn. Well, while I was watching that video, I was wondering if he was going to address the Asians, because newsflash, the Asians are coming up heavy in that weed shop stuff too. A lot of those Asian restaurants that shuttered during the pandemic, they reopened as weed spots, man. But those Arabs are real heavy in it too, real heavy in it. He mentioned something about the Rasta man who you would buy weed from, and he said something that's really true. It wasn't just this purchase, but there was some substance along with the purchase. There was something added, some added value. Now, I don't know if that matters in the larger world. I don't know if that matters or not, but I guess it should matter to the consumers, which would be us people. If you're going to go to the Rastaman to buy your thing, you're supposed to understand that there's a little microculture thing going on here. It's not just an exchange. And so, I'll see you also by the rec center. I'll see you, at the African Senate School or whatever. And I think that's an important point. And he made me remember that there used to be an area in Brooklyn here. Only would know the area, but it's down there. It's down there. It's on Franklin Avenue, down there by I'm forgetting the cross streets now, but it's, let's say, St. John's. Down in that area there was a rich Caribbean cultural area there. Rich, and a large part of it was pushed by the Rastafarianism thing. So you go down there and you get it's food, it's jewelry, it's just nice stuff. And these guys, these people who are not our friends, they went in there maybe 15 years now, and they just slaughtered that area. They turned that to something just not good anymore. And now we don't really have that in Brooklyn anymore that I could think of. And that's a shame. So I went through all that just to show her, like, what he's talking about is so true. And from someone who lives in Brooklyn, I think there's others on the panel who might live in Brooklyn too. If you've been paying attention, you could see what he's talking about. I will be curious to see how people feel about it from the economic standpoint, and his view of it's not just a transaction, but there's value added to it. There's a cultural exchange thing. I would like to hear how you guys talk about that in terms of, just solid economics that the rest of the world follows. But with that said, let me start with Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you?
So I follow him on Facebook. He's a good brother. He's often talking about make sure black markets remain black. It's always part of his slogan. But I think that the issue really is that we're really, especially black people in the United States, we're really only a few generations out of Jim Crow. So these economic markets that he's talking about, we were in a position where we had to trade with each other because we had no other choice. Black people were segregated in the United States. If you wanted to have groceries, you had to go to a black store. You had to interact with black people. But I think that as integration opened up more markets, then you got to deal with the international market, which we really don't have control over. So when these Arab businessmen come in, they have more access to the marijuana. They have access to where it's grown. They have more supply networks and they're able to bring it in. They're going to flood the market. And that's kind of what the problem we're facing here. I wouldn't know how to begin to get it back because unfortunately, most people, they have the option because they control the supply to shut the black suppliers out of the market. And they're going to use that to leverage that power to make sure they can maintain control over the market. It's not a matter of whether or not we want to buy from people, which I would assume we do, but how do we, get control over that? We got to create our own networks of transport and supply and demand. We have to build that for ourselves, and that would only be done if we have to create, shipping and contacts with other African people across diaspora. It's not something that we can't do, but it's a matter of, is that something that's a priority for us to want to do? I believe it should be, because if the people have the ability to cut off your, just something as something as like marijuana, and they can do that. They can do that to your food supply too. It's something we really got to consider and figure out how we're going to do that. I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Let me hear from Real Black Jumbo. What say you?
I had said it in the chat. I think number one is that you have to stop the bleeding. And that's just a big thing, is the notion of spending power and buying power. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't, that's like, it's a contradiction in terms. The power is most best used when it's conserved. If you have to expend power, there's a cost to it. You understand what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So when we spend our money, which is a form of power, in the form of our work and our effort and our human gains, we spend it. That's not power. We're losing it. So it's like that alone, like the consumerism, just it's a psychic check, and part of it is going to be an internal issue. You know what I'm saying, about a battle of wills about how you get better and without, using all of your resources. And that means pooling resources. That means, that just means a lot of not buying in bulk. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, part of it is that. Part of it's just, another part is, I think, naturally, I think eventually, black people in America are going to have to, there's no way black people, natural black people in this country are going to make it without, a connection to the world. I mean, it's as simple as, well, you have the so-and-so people and the so-and-so, and they come from, the Mexicans have Mexico, the Chinese have China, the Indians have India, you know what I'm saying? The English have England, you know what I'm saying? The black people have, we don't have the black land. You see, and that's as simple as that, until, black people get our heads out of our backs and just acknowledge and just just resign the fact, with grace that, all this, look, the ocean is the ocean. We can still be our own peoples in America. And don't get me wrong, black people in America are not you can describe as a nation or ethnicity or how you have it. It's, the ocean, if you just consider the ocean as just a really, really, really wide river, it's all good and it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? If you make it seem like black people in America are on a different planet than Africans, well, that just is a whole bunch of can of worms. That's just in my opinion. So part of that is just that the black people going to have to we can still be our own people, but in order to have resources, I mean, if you look at everyone around the world, it's not like where we're going to get our resources from. I think the only logical conclusion is to kind of get it in Africa and just compete and just win over the people in Africa on terms of trade, and that we could do better than anyone else and just defend our interests at the same time. It's the only way you can do it. You know what I'm saying? There's that. So you have to do it internally and then externally. I mean, as far as, I can only speak, as far as Africa, they have, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Black people can't really build the boats. We really can't buy them. I think Africa is going to have to like, scale it up and get these mega projects going for real, and not play the nickel and dime game when it comes to like material infrastructure. Black people are going somewhere in Africa, Nigeria is going to have to build some kind of ocean building vessels. They're going to have to build a fleet of them, not just the one or two. They're going to have to build hundreds of they're going to have to crank out the big boys and defend their interests at the same time, which probably means they're going to have to build a navy. In order to do that, they're probably going to need a lot of help from Africa. And you see what the conclusion I'm drawing. And the only way to do this is if African people, especially in America, and in the bulk of Black Africa is on the same page. I mean, Black Africans have to not buy good European goods. They just can't do it anymore. The mirrors and the trinkets and you know what I'm saying? It's just, you have to make your own stuff. You have to make a lot of it. You have to be able to sell it to a lot of your own people at competitive prices. It's the only way. You can't buy stuff from Europe. You have to sell stuff to your own people. I'm gonna pass.
Appreciate it, RBG. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. Let's hear from Oni now. Oni, what say you? How can we wrestle the control of our economic markets back? What say you?
Well, I think here's one of the problems. Just the premise. The reality is this. If you want to control your economy, you have to first focus on the basics, on the necessities of life, right? When you're talking about marijuana, right? I mean, maybe in some, I don't know, but it's not really a necessity. Now, maybe if you're like an addict or you feel like you have to be, you can't be sober or something, maybe you could conceive it as a necessity. But the reality is that marijuana is not a necessity. If you want to control your economy, you have to focus on the necessities. The issue with us as a people, especially if you're talking about America, the issue with us as a people is we're not focusing on our necessities. Okay? We're letting other people focus on our necessities. We get our food, our clothing, our shelter, our consciousness, our energy, our weaponry, our so on and so forth. We go to the white boy for that. And then we say, oh, if we want something for Black people, sure, we have restaurants, sure, we have hair care, sure, we have marijuana. And that's really the issue. It's like you're not going to wrestle your economy if you don't handle your own necessities. And if you're discussing marijuana, which is a luxury, right? If you're discussing any luxury, right, in order to control your economy, it's putting the cart before the horse, right? So, for me, the way how I'm looking at it, because like I said, I document some of this stuff in my book, so you guys will check it out along the Leafu, whatever. But, my point is that, at least the argument I'm making in the book or whatever, right? The point is, I could not take a person like this seriously. He's way too invested in, oh man, well, we used to buy weed from ourselves. Yeah, well, look, when you read Carter G. Woodson, in fact, right, A Miseducation of the Negro, he says, look, other people, he's telling you, he's like, foreigners come through and they sell peanuts, whereas we go to, economics, business school or whatever, and we try to figure out how to sell stocks or we try to figure out how to navigate the stock market, as opposed to just doing what you have to do, which is sell the freaking peanuts, right? There's other quotes that suggest, hey, you know what? Black people like luxuries too damn much. The famous joke, I can't remember his name, but one of his presidential candidates repeated, and Malcolm X recorded in his autobiography, and I say it all the time, but the famous joke is, a white man, a Jew, and a Negro, black person, a white man, and a black person, and a Jew were asked for one wish, and the white man said securities. He wants securities. Basically, he wants necessities. Okay. The black person said, I want a lot of money. And the Jew said, I would like some imitation jewelry and that colored boy's address. You know, like I would want some imitation jewelry and that black person's address. What they were saying back then was white people understood focus on your necessities, focus on securities, focus on getting a house, focus on like that's the real economy, right? The money's not the real economy. The real economy is the food, the clothing, the shelter. That's the real economy, right? The guns, the so on and so forth. That's the real economy. And the Jew says, and the joke is that black people will buy imitation jewelry. We will buy luxuries. We will buy marijuana, smoke it up, whatever, and then be broke tomorrow. And so it's like, no, you're not like, if the question is, hey, I got all this white boy is giving me, you know, my food, clothing, shelter. All I really need to do is get my hands on some marijuana. The reality is this: you're not going to have an economy. You're never going to have control of your economy because the white boy is giving you all the other stuff. I put it as, I mean, I didn't put it in the book like this, but I started seeing he's babysitting us in the West. You know, I see it more clearly now that I'm in Africa, but he's babysitting us in the West. And because he's babysitting us, you know, we're asking like we're doing babysitting things like, you know, oh man, I wish I was still selling marijuana. No, you're not going to win. You're not going to win if you're being babysat. It's as simple as that. That's all I'll say.
I appreciate that. Only sobering analysis there. I'll be curious to hear what others have to say. Let's go to Anthony McPhail. Anthony, what say you?
Can you hear me, Coco?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Okay, to me, okay, all right. Let me say I'm gonna say it a couple of ways. To me, it's, I mean, okay, I'm like, how can you control you can never control your economy when you a consumer, not a producer. That's what I think. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we black people in America and in the Caribbean, you know, we consumers. We buy we buy everything. You know, I mean, we don't produce enough. We produce some. Well, in the Caribbean, I think that at one time we was producing things. But then Bill Clinton came around with that, remember this thing called the North American Free Trade Agreement?
Yes, yes.
You remember when he came on with that North American Free Trade Agreement? And look what he did, remember what he did to Haiti with the rice. But I'm saying, well, you know, he came up and said, well, look here, you know, Haiti, the Caribbean, we're going to buy so much of this, there, and that, and give y'all access up here to our economy and everything. And they really destroyed the economies of the Caribbean with that North American Free Trade Agreement. But I'm saying, you know, well, we had an economy in the Caribbean where, you know, you had like in Haiti, rice was a big thing. And I know in other parts of the Caribbean, I think in Jamaica, you know, you may have things like sugar cane, you know, and other bauxite, you know, and in the rest of the region, I don't know all of the minerals and that what the main minerals that they use. But we went from being producers of this, you know, and provide like for our people and being able to sell, you know, to the outside of our countries, to just buying it from America, you know, buying things from America. So we became consumers instead of producers. I mean, black people in America, our biggest problem is we think that America is the only place. You know what I'm saying? We got a whole continent. Not only us black people in America, but black people in the diaspora. We got a whole continent of Africa over there, with our people over there, that we could be doing business with. The Chinese going over there, the Russians going over there, everybody else going over there, that we can go over there and deal with our people, man. You know what I'm saying? And establish relationship with them. You know, instead of us, I'm on a cell phone right now. You know, instead of me being on this cell phone that Moto or whoever, man, you know, we can have this. Hey, we could get together with our people over there and come up with our own cell phone. You know what I'm saying? And then we get the minerals, we get the coltan from the Congo. You know what I'm saying? And which powers the cell phone. You know, we could work hand in hand with our people. You know, provide our technical expertise. There's a whole bunch of smart people in Jamaica, man. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole bunch of smart people in the Bahamas. A whole bunch of smart people in Barbados. You know what I'm saying? A whole bunch of smart people in Afro-America. You know, that we can lend our talent along with our people's talents over there and develop this thing and, you know, and make it beneficial for both of us. Because, you know, they got the problem too, you know, with all of their raw materials they sell to these Europeans, you know, and don't create a job market for their own people. That's why you see people from Africa going to Europe and going to other places for work. You know what I'm saying? No, we sell raw materials, and these Europeans and everybody else, they develop the raw materials and sell them back to us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so we consumers and not producers when we got the power to be producers. I mean, you know, we ass backwards in the game, man. They, you know, they ahead of us. We behind, and we behind because, you know, we, you know, well, you know, I'm not gonna put it all over. We got these Uncle Tom Negroes who just want to get stuff for themselves, you know, and impede our progress, the progress for the people and everything. But it just, for example, I got a brother who stayed right down the street from me. Now he in the marijuana business, you know what I'm saying? And he make big, he a big time cat too. So he make a lot of money. And I was just talking to him one day, and I was like, I said, man, you know, no, I ain't trying to get all deep in your business or nothing. No, but I was like, no, who he get it, no, who he deal, people who he deal with. I got it out of it. You know, like, see, down here where I live in the southern United States, a lot of the marijuana stuff comes from South America. It comes from Mexico. It comes from South America. Instead of, you know, like, you know, the Arab thing. You know, even though we got Arab guys here, like in our city, man, all the old Circle K's and these corner stores, you ain't them Pakistanis, Iranis, Iraqis, oh man, they deep over there, man. They deep. Right here in my neighborhood. I went up there today, man. They had so much weed coming up out, it was a shame, man. But I was talking to him about it, and he said, yeah, you know, he fooled with these brothers. It's these cats out of Southern California, man, and they got ties like in I think El Salvador or somewhere. But it's these gangsters, you know what I'm saying? We know the names. I don't even want to mention their names. Where he get his connection from. And I was saying, man, you know what? I was doing some reading, and like right now, some of the best strains in the world of marijuana come from the Congo and come from Eswatini in Southern Africa, the former Swaziland. I mean, it's like they've been talking. They had it on this. They featured on the show Vice. You know what I'm saying? And like the straight. I mean, it's like the best marijuana that anybody know about. I'm just saying, like, bro, man, you need to look into stuff like that, man. You know, like think about like, hey, man, you know, open up a pipeline, some kind of way, do a business with brothers over there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, it's like yeah, man, we have to think outside of where we at. You know what I'm saying? I mean, overall, not just, you know, stuff like that, but I mean, just globally, economically and everything, we have to think about outside of where we are. We got to think about outside of where, you know, I'm going to just do business here in America. No, man, you can't just do business here, man. But we got a whole continent. What Marcus Garvey said, man, I'd never give up a continent for an island. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'd never give up a continent for this little old 3 million square miles here in North America. You know, we could get with our people, man, and we could work hand in hand. You know, it could be beneficial for us, beneficial for them. You know, our people, we could work with our people in the Caribbean. Man, I mean, just black people in America, black people in the Caribbean, us working together. The benefit, you know, we got 45, 50 million people up here. Just imagine the benefits that it will help our people in the Caribbean. Whether it's the tourism or any other stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the main thing. We got to work together, and we got to think outside of where we are, man. And I knock it off there. I don't feel like I'm rambling. I knock off there.
No, I appreciate it, Anthony. Thanks for that. Kofi was here, but he looked like he fell off. So we'll just go to Buana now. Buana, you heard everything everyone else had to say. What say you?
So let me address something first. So I started from backwards. So for Anthony, he was right when he said that the blacks in all over the world need to have some vision in terms of how we do business around the world. And he did it through his brother saying, well, you need to make connections. You need to make connections. I would tell Anthony that it's happening in the Caribbean. What I have seen is a lot of the West African countries, they seem to be approaching Caribbean countries and trying to create trade situations and opportunities. In this country, we are trying to create a banking scenario. And the crazy thing is a thing called Pan-African Payment something. I can't remember the name of it. I read in the newspaper today, where this government is trying to establish like a financial system with African countries, where they're trying to formulate financial situations and going on and doing business and trade with one another. And I have seen that West African nations have started to approach Caribbean countries. Mia Motley was just walking with the brother from Rwanda, rather than the president of Rwanda. I forget his name now. You know, but they are slowly doing that. They're slowly doing that. Who was ahead of us? Who was doing it way like prior to us? Is the churches. The church has been formulating and establishing relationships outside of the borders of our internal borders a long time ago. You would see American pastors come to the Caribbean to preach. You would see Caribbean pastors go to the Americas and preach in black churches. You know, they would go to Africa. Miles Monroe, he went to many black churches in America and even in Africa, all over the place. You know, and we had other pastors who would have done that. So the church has been doing it, practicing this intercontinental and even, you know, going all over the place. So the churches have been doing it first. And then you have the drug guys. That's whole. I'll get back to the drug guy situation. Let me get back to that. But ride with me for a minute. Just ride with me for a minute. So America itself is based off of gangsterism, right? There's no doubt about it. It's the foundation of America is gangsterism, no doubt about it. But what America did, what the white boys in America did is they made a white economy for themselves, and all other economies they classify it as a black economy, So the white economy was like places like Wall Street. You know, all the merchant classes, the economic, the educational institution, Harvard, Yale, and things like that. White corporations and things like that, where you would have to go to get so-called formal education, and be able to impress your boss enough to have employment there. Well, that cut out a whole lot of black folks who didn't go to university, who wasn't able to go to university, didn't have the money for it, or didn't have the academic ability to go to these kinds of places. Therefore, they was cut out of the so-called white economy. What else was left for them to do? They only had the alternative economy, the black economy. What's in the black economy? That's when everyone is able to compete on a certain level. Everyone. You know, we just basically bartering, selling, trading, you know, buying and selling. That's what we doing. It has nothing to do with color and race, things like that. That's every man for himself. And within that economy, you know, you had the colored people being able to carve out their own economies for themselves. And then after a while, it was able to protect it. Well, one of the economies that the black man had was the marijuana trade. And one of the economies that we had was the marijuana trade. For right or for wrong, we had the marijuana trade. And if you say that is something that is a luxury, just consider, you know, Benson and Hedges, just consider Rothmans, you know, just consider Starbucks. You know, people forego necessities for wants all the time in America. That's how America works. before they buy an apple, before they pay rent, sometimes they're gonna get that cigarette in the corner. That's just how America works. And because a lot of these people are addicts, yeah, they forego need, they forego necessity to buy wants, and that's just been the case. So the black people been able to carve out. They've been able to carve out, a situation where they had was able to create their own economies. The Jamaican gangs was doing it first, with the marijuana trade. They had the marijuana coming from Jamaica, established a whole propaganda campaign behind it with the music. Whole property to basically basically many people was going to buy marijuana because it's like that was a popular thing to do. Not only that, it had medicinal value. I know people say it was just used to get high, but it had medicinal value for many, many people. Many people who couldn't go to the hospital to get drugs, they would use marijuana for different kinds of things within their community. When the pills was too expensive in the hospitals, they would go to the monitor corner to get the marijuana. That would be able to satiate whatever pains they may have had, especially people with cancer, all manner of different kinds of things, because marijuana does have medicinal value. All of a sudden, this market was wrestled away from us because of different reasons. Now, I don't see how marijuana is grown by the Chinese in Oklahoma and being able to sell on the streets of New York City, over and above, and cutting out the blacks who was usually selling that marijuana trade, who had really had the market on it. I don't know how that happened. But I think that this is something that I think that any markets and industries that we have, we should hold on to. I think that if we want to attach a morality basis to it, that's neither here nor there. The sisters once had control. Maybe they never had control of the hair markets and the nail markets. Maybe they never had control of it. But one thing for certain is sure is the Chinese currently, or the Asians currently, own the hair care market and the nail market in most hoods. And I think that this is a travesty. The Arabs owning the weed market. I know they own the small stores and some of the bodegas in New York City, but to have marijuana too, I don't see how that happened. I don't see how we allow that to happen. And I really don't want to put a morality to it, because America is run on different kinds of economies and industries. And just as the Benson and Hedges and Rutmans makes billions of dollars within our community because people forego necessity for what they want. I think that that's something that we should protect within our community. I think that that's a market we should protect. Maybe not crack, but certainly that. I think that that is not a bad market, and it does have good medicinal contributions to make within our community, for the right or for the wrong. And I think that we should protect certain markets that we actually do own and possess within our communities. I really feel that way, but I'll just leave it there, man. I'll leave it there.
So I'll ask if there's any last thoughts, as Buana gave his take. Any last thoughts on this prompt?
Well, yeah. Well, I would just say, I think people do generally buy luxuries. The thing is this: if you're trying to advance as a people, you should delay on your luxuries. The reality is that one of the keys to marketing is that you can get people to buy luxuries for their own improvement in life. But you're never going to advance if you're just buying luxuries. The people who can afford luxuries already advanced, right? The people who can't afford luxuries and continually buy luxuries, they're not going to advance. And that's the thing. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. You can, individually, prey on your people or other people, and sell them, luxuries to get yourself in a better financial circumstance. But the reality is that if you're looking to uplift Black people generally, no, you don't want to encourage, you don't want to encourage bad habits. You know what I mean? Like again, if you want to individually advance, absolutely, Black people are going to buy marijuana. You know what I mean? And that's why these foreigners can come into your community and sell these things that they themselves can't consume. In fact, he said, hey, it's he said haram. It's haram for them to sell it. The same as the Chinese don't feed themselves General Tso's chicken and fried chicken and whatever you guys eat, whatever people eat. You know what I mean? And then the same way that like Muslims are behind the liquor stores. You know what I mean? But they don't drink alcohol. And the list goes on. Everybody knows how to take advantage of a fool. It's only for us to say, well, like what is our objective? If your objective is to take advantage of a fool, absolutely sell marijuana to any and everybody. But if your objective is to like you say, control our economic markets, then it's a different question altogether. Because being fools, you're not going to control your economic markets. You know what I mean? You're just gonna continue to go in debt. And I use the best example I know is of this woman I was dating who rented what was it, like furniture or something that she didn't even use, but she ended up homeless. She bragged about how many pairs of shoes her son had. She's like, oh, my son has 20 pairs of shoes, because you got to have 20 pairs of shoes, right? And yeah, she ended up homeless. And a lot of Black people, who make those poor economic decisions, buying luxuries, buying this, buying that, so on and so forth, they do end up in the homeless shelter. So I can't say, and again, if you end up in the homeless shelter, are you controlling your economic markets? No, that's it.
I understand what Oni's saying, I understand what he's saying. My only problem with it is, Oni, is people are gonna do it anyways. They're gonna do it anyways. I mean, so why would you want to control it? I mean, it's like, all right. In the Bahamas, right? Um, Gambling was a thing. Gambling was a thing in the Bahamas, where we never was in control of that market until you had a few people few Bahamians illegally started opening up casino spots around the areas and things of that nature. So what happened was it created a class of multi-millionaires, some young millionaires overnight, multi-millionaires. So where that money used to go to the white guys in the casino establishment, it started going back to the people who look just like me and you. And what they in turn did with that money is they started to employ more people within their community. They started to invest in different things within the community. The money wasn't cycled outside of the community. It stayed within the community. Because people are gonna gamble anyways. I'm saying, why not control that? Why not control it and do something good with it? If you can, rather than that money leaving your community, because people are gonna do it anyways.
Well, let me just say this. So there's two things to it, right? One is this. You said the Bahamas. We got to ask, well, because the question is not, how can we make money? Because obviously you can make money selling drugs to your people, right? But the question is, how do you get economic control? So it's like, does Bahamas have economic control? You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like the fat doctor, not fat, but the chubby doctor. You have to look. You kind of have to look at models of success to say what could be successful. But the other thing is this: when you say people are going to do it anyway, people are not going to do it anyway. The Chinese, no matter how many times you put the General Tso's chicken in front of them, they're not going to eat it. They're going to eat. Now, again, we were talking about better diets. They're going to eat the steamed vegetables and the white rice, I guess. But they're still going to eat steamed vegetables and white rice. They're not eating General Tso's chicken, no matter how much you put in front of it. The Muslim, he has liquor stores. He has liquor stores, access to alcohol. He's not touching it. The Jew has, butcheries, whatever. And I don't know if he has butchers or not, but he can get pork just as easily as you can get pork. He doesn't eat it. So these other people are practicing a level of self-discipline, and they have control of your economic market.
But they are
So
practicing. Sorry, guys. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
no, so what I'm saying is that we have to say to ourselves, well, if it's like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the people who are controlling your economic markets practice some sort of economic discipline, right? Practice some sort of personal discipline, what have you, right? If they are controlling economic markets and you want to control your economic markets, it goes back to what Malcolm X said. He said, anytime somebody's more successful than you, they're doing something you're not doing. And what we're not doing is practicing some damn restraint and trying to get our money up and really get control of our economy. Brothers trying to buy weed from other brothers, they're not trying to get control of the economy. They're just trying to get high. And like you said, these multimillionaires. I mean, again, I completely agree. That was in Malcolm X's story too, where he was talking about the different what do you call it, number runners and all that kind of stuff. It's a good way to make money. It's just a question of, at the end of the day, well, I mean, again, if you can turn that money, if you can flip that money into something good, more power to you. That is a method, so to speak. But the reality is, like what I would say is that the economy and controlling the economy is just a little bit more complicated than what this gentleman was talking about. Okay, I'm buying weed from the Rastaman, and therefore, black people are gonna no, it's not that simple. I mean, obviously, if you had a choice, go to Rastaman, I guess, but it's like weed is so far from what constitutes an economy that it's almost like, why would you bring that up in this discussion? Like, why would you bring up the marijuana trade? Is that what I'm saying?
No, but Bonnie, weed is an economy, bro. Whether you do that or not, weed is a huge economy. Just as fentanyl is an opioid crisis, that is an economy for some people in the world, especially the Mexicans. So I mean, it's an economy that probably won't last. But drugs is common to America as apple pie is, brother. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? Americans love their drugs, whether you know it or not. They love their drugs. They're going to find some form of it. Usually it started with the cigarettes, and then it ended up being the caffeine, and Starbucks and shit like that. But drugs in America is common as apple pie. We in our economy, there are certain habits that we have taken on that we're going to do, regardless of the fact that if we are giving our monies to white men or black men or Chinese people. In our economy, our sisters like to get their hair done. They like to get their nails done. And I'm saying that money, it would be better for that money to go to our establishments, because we know that money will probably be recycled within our community, as opposed to that money going to the Asian communities, because our sisters are going to get their hair done and their nails done regardless. Now, you may say that that's a necessity. They need to practice self-discipline, but you are trying to get for your pursuit of the perfect, for your pursuit of the perfect, you're gonna miss the good. You're gonna miss the good. And I think that as a perfectionist, you're gonna miss the good. Because the good is, I would rather, since my people are gonna do it anyways, I would rather them spending money with me and in turn doing something productive within my community with that, rather than them going down the street to Joe Lynn or Michelle Lee, because she's going to take that money and she's going to spend it within her community, and their community become more successful. So I think that if people are going to do it anyways, I feel like we should wrestle that economy back to us, so where we could do something good within our community, because people are going to do it anyways, brother. They're going to do it anyways.
Can I jump in? May I please jump in real quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. I would say, like in Juana's case, maybe the case of them doing the illegal, trade it just functions differently, due to maybe enforcement and the ability of that level illegality being able to run through, so that they could generate income out the books, as it were. You know what I'm saying? In America, it's different in any case. It's real hard for black folks to really do like illegal stuff. Like, you know, we do have to hustle about it. It's not a casual illegality to say the least. It's nowhere near casual. It's real difficult for black people to like find black market things nowadays because again, like we don't have our sources. Like it's just a different beast. That's all I wanted to say. That's all.
Okay, so I'll just add on this. It's like, you know, what I'm saying is this. You know, I mean, it's two questions. One, say you get your hands back on the, you know, drug trafficking, you know, in your community. Okay, then what? You know, it is probably better for us as a people, not on a perfectionist tip, but it'd be probably better for us as a people if we're trying to take control of our economic markets to say, let's get control of, because there's things people are going to do. They're going to get their luxuries, possibly, sure. But what they're definitely going to get are their necessities. So if you said, hey, you know what? Let's do hydroponics, right? Let's get, you know, let's sell hydroponic foods or aquaponic foods. No, what's it called? I can't remember. But the other one, let's do, aeroponic foods, right? Let's do aeroponic foods and expand and expand and expand and expand. And what you will do with that is that people, like you said, people are going to buy food, right? But when you start expanding with the food, you're actually expanding in a positive way that doesn't impoverish people, that kind of enriches their lives, and that you could give them greater access to food and so on and so forth. You can counteract the food desert, so on and so forth. Whereas if you do the drug trade and you just expand in the drug trade, the reality is that you're really just drugging your people. You know, and sure, you're like, hey, my people are going to drug themselves anyway, so I might as well make a quick buck off of it. Yeah, that's true. You know, and it's okay. But again, when you start scaling, you know, if you're a merciless scaler, you know, if you're a merciless, you know, quote unquote capitalist or whatever, right? All that you're doing is like on a larger scale and a long-term scale is just harming your own people. You know, whereas if you were to, you know, focus on things like, you know, building homes or growing crops for food or you know, medicine and you know, the other type of drug, right? Medicine and so on and so forth. When you expand that and scale up, it's actually a net positive, you know? And so that's really like, especially if we're talking, you know, from an African-centered perspective or African nationalist perspective, where, you know, we should, you know, we can obviously make a good dollar, you know, finding new markets for, you know, whatever drugs we may have, and say, look, people are going to do it anyway. They're going to buy it from other people. Let's buy it from us. That's true. But, you know, at the end of the, like realistically, the impact that you're having on the community is a net negative. You know, sure, I make more money, but it's really not great. You know, it's really not a good thing. And that's why I'll say this. I'll just finish with this then, I guess, right? That's why the Muslims, they even say themselves, to sell alcohol is haram. Even the Jews allegedly are against, you know, selling drugs to their own, and they really mean to their own people. But everybody else kind of knows, hey, you know what? You know, when they devise a moral code, they say to themselves, actually don't do this to your own people.
I think that Oni is coming from a tradition. Anthony, cut your mic if you got it on. Somebody have their mic on. I think that you are coming from a tradition where you think that marijuana is harmful and not medicinal, and I think that that's where our conversations diverge. Because I'm not coming from the tradition where I think that marijuana is harmful, you know, as a so-called drug, you know, quote unquote drug. I'm coming from a tradition where I think that marijuana is medicinal. And bro, and for the Muslim argument, let me just say this, because all of us know that Muhammad was having a 9-year-old wife, bro. So their moral position is very sketchy at best. I mean, so they may not quote unquote, take drugs, but they sure like them little girls. But needless to say, I would just say that I come from a tradition where I think that marijuana is medicinal as opposed to harmful. So I think that that's where our positions kind of like diverge a bit. I'll leave it there though.
Well, I'll just say this because, sorry, quickly, because I know. Sorry. Okay, what I wanted to say was this. Oh, sorry.
Hold on. Kofi has returned. Kofi, you have to keep it brief now because we're about to wrap it up. But what are your thoughts on this conversation?
Well, yeah, I'll keep it brief. I mean, anything. I mean, I agree with Buana, for the most part, because good or bad, in a capitalistic society, people are going to make money off of it, and that's an opportunity. And there's going to be a vacuum. There's going to be a need to fill that vacuum. Also, I forgot the brother's name. I forgot your name. Also, we need. Hold on a second. Yeah. So also, when it comes to like these groups, yes, they do have. I don't think they have a form of discipline that we don't have. It's just that they could do things under the radar. Muslims drink. Muslims eat pork, touch pork. There's so-called quote-unquote Jews, and then he's making a comparison to white people and Jews. White people are Jews. In case we didn't know, white people are Jews. They do these things, but again, they're not being looked under a microscope like how we were looked at under a microscope. So anyway, basically, I just want to say basically like anything that we can make money off of and stay within our community, just keep it within our community. As long as it doesn't, hurt our community. But I do agree we should keep it in the black community. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what I would say about medicinal versus thing, from what I've seen, a lot of people are not using marijuana for medicine. They're using it for recreation. And in a way where it just kind of like dumbs them down. And then it also like compromises their decision making, So I'm not necessarily seeing it as like harmful or poisonous where it can kill you or something, but it can make you slow-witted, or it can make you just really indecisive or make poor decisions. And just kind of like, I mean, I've known somebody who was like, I could say smoked something right before they met me, and it was just like a really frustrating experience, really socially dull, socially inept. And to voluntarily do that to yourself. I mean, again, people do that. It's fine, whatever. But yeah, I don't see it as harmful, but I don't necessarily see it as medicine either. I kind of just say, well, I'd rather be sober, and of course, again, alcohol is another one of those things that, just compromises your decision skills. And like Buana would say, you're not going to outlaw alcohol. Especially not in America. But I mean, and I would say alcohol is obviously more dangerous than marijuana. But as far as my experience with, as far as I've seen for marijuana,
I would disagree with that. I don't know anyone who smoked marijuana and got in a deadly car crash.
No, I said alcohol was more dangerous than marijuana.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But at the same time, we're doing a comparison. White people use marijuana at the same rate as black people. If we're doing a white versus black comparison.
Yeah, I wasn't doing a white versus black comparison, but yeah, I know what you're saying. So yeah, that's pretty much it, though. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
I want to answer that. Yes, definitely, and I'll be quick, Coco, because I know we're ready to go. What I would say is, I understand Oni's experience, but Oni is coming from his experience, and his experience has taught him that it's caused people to be done with it. My experience might be different, because even when he talks about marijuana and the use of it, he engages it through smoking. There are people who drink marijuana tea. Marijuana is a tea for some people. They never smoke marijuana in their life. They just drink it as a tea. And when they get sick, they use it in terms of drinking it and to feel better. How how I have engaged with the experience of it may be different from yours. That's why I'm saying that for some people it may be medicinal. For some people they just use it recreationally. You know what I mean? So when we going down to our people personal subjective experiences, now the conversation diverges. You know what I mean? Because it becomes a different kind of thing. I see it as something that's useful. You see it as something that's deleterious. So I mean, I understand your perspective, but I just say that there are other perspectives that should be considered as well. But I'll leave it there too. By the way, I'll stop there.
Can I jump in briefly one more time? Whatever product that we use, we have to keep in mind if there's ancillary products involved with what we use, just like what Juana said. Like, again, some people may use marijuana as tea, but the preponderance of people, just as a ballpark, probably 9%, well, smoking. The problem is with smoking, you need a flame in order to have a flame. Chances are you have a lighter. Black people, don't produce the lighters. As opposed to, let's say, alcohol, right? Where if you produce a product of, alcoholic beverage, you don't need anything else besides, the bottling or whatnot. And you could, it's a bit simpler, let's say, to produce a bottle than, let's say, to produce a lighter. As you can see, like there's value additions onto the product that, you have to keep in mind. That's all I want to say.
All right, let's do our positive shout outs for the week. So everyone who's on the panel, stay there for me. Let's start with Black Steel. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Shout out to Iran right now because they just bombed Israel since we've been on the show. So we could be looking at World War III coming up. So shout out to the panel. If it's our last show, it was a good one. So hopefully we see each other next week. If not, it's been fun, guys.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Didn't know that was going on, so I appreciate that. RBG, what would you like to say?
I guess I'll shout out OJ. I guess I gotta do it. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, but you see black people, you know what I'm saying? You can say that, you know what I'm saying? He just how he was in his work life as a football player. He was trying to get away and I saw the verdict. I was pretty young. I saw that verdict and I saw the chase. And I mean, it's one of those things that he was able to, you know what I'm saying? He made his own destiny, you know what I'm saying? As a black man, I always think that in spite of, you know what I'm saying, what goes through in life and this, you know what I'm saying, what is put on your plate, you know what I'm saying? Just hold your own ground, you know what I'm saying? And, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, shout out RIP to OJ and Johnny Cochran, man. That was RBG Black Steel. Anthony McPhail, what would you like to shout out this week?
Yeah, man. First, I want to shout out to the show, man, Bitter Medicine Podcast and KWAZ Radio, and all my brothers, man, who are on the panel tonight. And shout out to y'all, man. And I'm glad to be back, man. You know, I've been doing some other stuff. You know, I'm back now though. But I like to also say shout out to OJ, man. Yeah, you know, we know OJ was problematic, but he didn't do it. And leave them snow bunnies alone. And for all the brothers coming up after OJ. And I'd like to give a shout out to Coach Dawn Staley of South Carolina, man. You know, for winning the championship, the college championship. I ain't really a big sports guy, but for her winning, because they had this old ugly ass white bitch, Caitlin Clark, the greatest of all times, and talking about her. I mean, even after she got her ass whooped, you know what I'm saying? They were still talking about her instead of these sisters who whooped the ass and everything. So shout out to Coach Dawn Staley, man, and Raven Johnson and Carolina Gamecock and forget that old ugly bitch, Caitlin Clark. So shout out. All right.
Well done. Well done, shout out. I appreciate that 100%. Oni, what would you like to shout out this week?
So Black Steel took it from me, but yeah, we're gonna shout out Iran, I guess. World War III, oh man, I was like, shit. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, shit. I mean, we'll see what happens, but apparently, the U.S. and U.K. intercepted some of the missiles and drones, and I think France is getting up on it. And we never know if Russia and China get involved, then we might be looking at some of the last days on the planet. So shout out to striking back against what they call white supremacy, right? That's it.
Appreciate that. Only also make sure you guys check out Oni's channel. Check out Kofi's channel as well. And check out Oni's latest book on Amazon. Buana, what say you? What would you like to shout out?
Yeah. I don't know why Oni laughing, but what Black Steel just said is extremely concerning. Extremely concerning. And I got smacked by that. But like I say, man, shout out to the brothers. You know what I mean? Y'all take care of yourself. Cause if that is true, what he's saying, that's a very dangerous situation, man. I gotta say that's very dangerous for the world. So, y'all brothers take care of yourself, man. That's all I could say. Very dangerous for the world. Very dangerous. Yeah. All right, brothers, man. Y'all be safe, man. Be safe.
I appreciate that, Buana, and my shout outs to the panel tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in. My shout outs to you guys in the chat tonight who are active. Still trying to see more women join the panel. More women. We have Provide Triggers for Evolution was in the chat, but more women in the chat too. Oh, we also have Sister Raw as well. So shout out to all of you for joining us tonight. We should be back next week. I hope to see you guys again. Until next week, you guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.